everyone. Thanks for tuning in to Power Athlete Radio. When the guys get together to answer your questions in a crew episode, a lot of shit gets pondered. Tex spends most of the podcast trying to convince John and Luke that he is not a robot and that he is, in fact, a human man with human emotions. Luke wrestles with his own experience of mortality when a public restroom automatic sink fails to sense his presence, which makes him feel like he is temporarily dead. And finally, John tries to legitimize the premier podcast in strength and conditioning by actually answering your inquiries, S&C stuff. Imagine that. Here it is, episode 325.
Power Athlete Nation, what's happening? It's that time again for another episode of the premier podcast in strength and conditioning.
Ing.
Now, John, I have to ask. You look fabulous today.
Oh, thank you.
What is it who are you wearing today?
I'm wearing a Kelly green shirt by, it's a tri-blend. And it is emblazed with this new design that we have for the Wade's Army shirt.
Wade's Army, people. For those of you watching on YouTube, you see the trio here basically pulling off the Wade's Army look for 2019.
This was kind of a big deal, man. We went back and forth on the designs and the colors and, just giving it like a St. Patrick's Day theme, but it really, Harry, a.k.a. the premier penguin in...
Is it him?
No, but I like to... That's a theory, but I do like to refer to him as the premier graphic designer in strength and conditioning. And Harry came up and started using this green on the website, and I think it looks great. And so we were going to go with a darker, print on the Wade's Army, but I had a couple green T-shirts, and man, I really just dig the white. I think it's really just...
I do got to tell you, it looks a lot better in person than it did on the screen.
You know what? When I looked at it in the mocks, it kind of looked a little busy, but seeing it printed, man, I'm really pretty excited about how it turned out. That green's become really like a good hallmark color for us, so I'm excited about it.
And who did your bottoms?
Who did my bottoms?
Yeah, your Wade's did your top. What do you got? What do you got going on below the table here, big guy? You wearing anything?
Shorts, plaid shorts.
There's nothing down there, people. He is butt naked. I'm wearing my jorts I made last week, which, John, they're way too short.
Well, I told Luke, for
you
years...
You can always cut them shorter.
Yeah.
Fucked it up.
So for years, I would buy pants, and then I would wash them, and then the pants would shrink, and so they would just become shorts. And I figured out that, you got to cut them real long and then just wear them around and kind of, roll them up to find the exact length.
Yeah, because I blew up the fly in my other jorts, which were Jants, because they weren't really... Well, Jants would be...
And I
jeans.
can't really see us paying $100+ for the... what's one of those CrossFit brands is selling actual workout jorts. But I think like $130. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to spend that on jorts.
Here's the thing.
Macrame your own.
Ashley bought me this pair of real tight skinny jeans I never wore. But she spent fucking, I'm sure, $70 on them. They're Volcom or Ruka or something like that. And they're just sitting in my fucking closet. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. I am never going to wear those pants ever again in my life. I'm making jorts.
Why? Why were they so tight?
They're just so tight. Like, my calves have gotten really big. I'm not sure if you know this, McQuilkin. I haven't sent you.
Yeah, I haven't seen you in the gym in a long time. I don't know that.
What the fuck is that supposed to mean, man?
The podcast. You haven't been on a podcast in a month.
I know. I'm worried that I'm, going to get a little rusty here. I won't.
Well, you should be. I just think that.
But too skinny in the calves. Around the ankle.
You've gotten away from training, and actually, Parsley said it today. He's like, Luke will never train hard ever again.
You think so?
That's what Parsley thinks.
You guys don't even know. You don't even know. The system's in full effect.
I think John knows.
Yeah. The system is in full effect. John didn't go in with the system. He basically admitted it that last episode. What was that episode I was on?
It's
Ryan Meckler.
It's pretty much going to be like a 2 or 3 year hiatus, and all of a sudden 2 or 3 years are going to pass, and you're going to be like, I haven't really trained hard in a couple of years. What fucking happened? And you were just in survival mode. It's totally happens.
It's called fluid periodization, Tex. I'm taking my omega wave
Chris
reading
Morris.
every morning.
Are you?
Well, it's like kind of my assumed, what is it? Perceived omega wave reading.
Did you borrow Tex's mood ring, toe ring?
Yes.
Mood toe ring?
Yes, I'm wearing it right now. Pinky ring or pinky toe because I'm not a slut.
I
don't know what that means.
Why, is there a specific...
Yeah, if you put it on any of the
each
middle
toe
toes,
means something different. You don't know this?
I'm a pinky toe.
Dude, I don't know. I've never met a dude that wears a toe ring, so you're really the first one I've ever met. And what's weird...
First two.
Yeah, well, the fact that you guys are sharing it's even weirder.
I know. I get it during the week. He gets it during the weekends because he goes out, and trying to pick up chicks. You got to have a cool toe ring.
Yeah, the ring is in complete sleep deprivation.
Yeah,
Because I'm going out on weekends.
So-
Luke's just staying at home.
And so he wears it on his big toe, and his big toe is the size of my pinky toe.
Well, is that why you wear the boat shoes? So
It
that,
seems like
that,
the
that you don't
design-
really have to slip them off when you want to show off the pinky toe or a ring. You just kind of basically like, hey, look down and you can see your toes in those shoes.
Mm-hmm.
I wore them out. I can't, they're done. I fucking rocked them despite all of this negative energy that I get from the team, and fucking worked out into them and sprinted in them until they are no longer, it's a good van. It lasted, 6 months of just cruel jokes, heavy lifts, and sprints.
You know what, John? You know what this sounds like to me? Classic robot talk.
Sprinting and heavy lifts are kind of relative in that way. So
Of course it is.
Oh, I didn't say they were fast.
well, I think the irony of this, and why I'm going to call bullshit on this, is you show up every day and you basically come in barefoot, and I have to watch your little Lego feet prints all over the mat. So I don't
Getaway
know.
sticks?
I don't know when you were wearing these boating shoes to lift heavy weights in.
Well, I haven't broken in the new pair.
Classic
I'm
robot stall
avoiding, I'm avoiding that few weeks where you break in, but I do wear them
If this, then that.
pickleball.
If this, then that. He's on the binary code. He's like 0, 1, 1, 0, 0.
But John, aren't
I don't
we
even know
all
what it-
binary?
I don't even know what that
Electrons,
means.
protons, photons. Back to our shirts.
Yeah,
Slight
seriously.
sidebar. Yes, 'tis the season, McQuilkin. Enlighten us.
We are in the thick of our Wade's Army campaign. So September is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. You're going to see this all over Major League Baseball. They're one of our biggest supporters in the fight for pediatric cancer. And we are right in our big rush this month and focus on the pediatric cancer of neuroblastoma. And this is our 8th year, if you believe it or not, and our goal is to pass the $1 million fundraise mark through Wade's Army. So that is our goal, and we have 4 initiatives that we're pushing people towards. You select where your donation goes towards. In exchange, you get this badass green shirt or sweet tank top or little kids tee that we got going on. So 4 initiatives. We're continuing our neuroblastoma research initiative. So this is a global initiative, and we're paired up with many different pediatric cancer advocates to push and fund international research study. Then we have our Family Support Fund. As always, individuals through our community. So all of you, if you ever hear someone's in need that is battling neuroblastoma, reach out directly to John or I, and then we'll be able to support that family. So every family we've ever helped has been because of one of you, a friend, connection. Then what I'm excited about is we're going all in with our kitchen at Cincinnati Children's. What initially last year started as simply a more nutritional opportunity, a smoothie bar more or less, has now evolved into a full-blown kitchen at the new ward at Cincinnati Children's. So our big goal is to put a stamp of Wade DeBruin on that hospital. So we're doing our damnedest to fund as much of that project as we can so we can give it to him. And then finally, Wade's Army Operations. We got to buy the shirts. We got to ship them out. And we aim to be as cost effective with your dollar as possible so we can send it towards the big 3. And I guess now is good a time as ever. Based off our Rick Smith podcast last year.
You're announcing it.
It will be announced already on social, but now when this podcast drops, it'll be real. And Harry's got the graphics, and he showed them to me.
Yeah, but all of your robot followers aren't going to fucking...
Well, I'll shut... This is the true test because I'm not a robot because I'll get electrocuted. I'll shut down if I was, but I'm not.
Are you really yelling and trying to convince us that you're not a robot?
Classic.
Because that's only what a robot would really do.
You learned this at Cal. Robot rhetoric. Yeah. Robot rhetoric.
First thing that a robot does is try to convince you it's not a robot, which is just standard robot tactic.
All right, whatever.
I am not a robot.
Yeah, Rick Smith the CEO of Axon, and we're linking
Founder of the Taser.
Founder of Taser International.
Right, that's
company.
That's the most accurate, right?
Yeah, lining up, and if I cross the $20,000 fundraising mark, I will line up to get tased. Who's going to pull that trigger? Nobody knows.
Ooh, I have an idea of the person's opportunity. Like, if you want the opportunity to tase Tex.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Is this going to be an auction item?
It has to be an auction item at the fucking symposium.
Oh, shit.
No,
Legit.
I think I should.
I think
I get to hand pick.
No.
No. I think that's our big donor. It's like, hey, you can.
What's in John's pocket? A taser.
No.
So
Yes,
the person
yes.
that wins what's in my pocket gets to tase Tex.
Yes, what's in John's pocket, and you have a
Is a
taser in your
taser.
pocket the whole fucking weekend? Yes.
Do we have any things that's like off limits? Like, is it like if we get to 25, can we like tase Tex in the balls?
No.
Oh, I see. So
No.
we plus up. So you hit like a $30,000 threshold.
Well, no.
That
You get
tase him in the
tased.
face?
Shut the fuck up. None of this is true. $20,000.
It got me right in the
taste.
fucking eye.
At the TSAC conference, people have already heard that, and a lot of LEO guys, so they were coming up and telling me, I guess, what to expect and then how to approach it, so I make it as not painful as possible.
I think you got to go in full bladder.
I think you also got to go in really hungover, so you really dehydrate.
Hungover,
No problem
full
there.
bladder, right? Hungover, full bladder, and like probably like a big thing of Topo Chico and Pop Rocks.
In my hands?
No, in like just eat
In
it.
my mouth?
and then we fucking hit you, and you barf and piss everywhere. Yeah, it's like a newborn. That was happening all night last night.
You know what's pretty amazing about the newborn is their ability to actually projectile out of both ends.
It was
where you're
fucking
like
insane. Yeah,
Wow, I've never puked and thrown up at the
I
same
got got
shit.
last night.
Yeah,
I got last night.
yeah. There's
But back to Tase Tex. This
You're
is fucking. This is initiative I can get behind.
yeah.
I think you're gonna hit $20,000 by the time, like in 2 weeks.
Oh, I'm already at 2K. Mm-hmm. And Dusty shot a couple hundo over.
Yeah.
So it's so weird. David MCK just fucking mortgaged his gym to get that 20 grand. And
Joe, MCK, hang on. Do not put if you're going to mortgage your gym and your house and maybe whatever you got to do, you have to save money for the fucking silent auction so you can actually tase Tex too.
I think you know what it is? It's a win-win.
It is. This is a true win-win scenario.
Yeah.
Nobody
and
loses
The
in
waxing
this one.
last year was a lose-lose. It was awful.
Well, we didn't get a full waxing.
Shut the fuck up.
I mean,
He's got post-traumatic wax
I'll tell you,
syndrome.
here's how I'm not a robot. That was the most painful.
well, the fact that you're fucking
experience.
still tearing up right now.
Post-traumatic wax syndrome, man.
Dude,
I'm not a robot because
you
that was
realize-
so fucking bad.
Do you realize that the taser thing is going to be worse?
No, it isn't.
There's no way.
Taser's 5 seconds. Waxing was 20 minutes. Just fucking.
Wait a minute. I think we plus up with multiple tasings.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
If you hit $40,000,
No. Okay.
it's a
Right.
tase tasing.
So what we do is we get Rick Smith to come with
Retase.
his drone.
Yeah.
And
TaseNet.
what happens is Tex runs around in a circle and the drone follows him and just tases him. Like
it's
why?
like surviving the
That's
game.
what
why,
I'm- that's
why
what I'm
we
training
cheer?
for.
Why we cheer? Like everybody's around drinking and Tex is running around in circles and then the fucking drone gets
Or
him.
like anytime
That's what I'm
during the-
training for now.
Yeah, anytime-
Let's go.
anytime
Rick,
during the weekend.
technology. Killing is a technology problem. You're not going to catch me.
Anytime during the weekend, John, like a siren can start to go off, or like and that's when the fucking drones are coming out, and Tex has to go run. Oh, this could be so good. If only.
All in the name,
Dude,
of neuroblastoma and childhood cancer awareness month.
Right. So 2 things. Number 1, people, before we get on. and
No,
continue-
I was just going to say, so one of Kate's friends, Heather, who's the mother of Wade DeBruin, who, we started this in memory of. So Heather and Kate, my wife, grew up together. And then another one of their friends, she has got a pretty good sense of humor and is pretty funny. So she actually got a chicken costume. And she goes around and dances as a chicken for people that'll donate to Wade's Army.
Oh, no kidding.
Oh, it's hilarious, and she posts these videos on it. And she, I think, is actually already raised like a
1,500.
yeah, and so it's pretty funny because she was like trying to like convince Kate like you need to get a chicken costume, and like Kate's like I'm there's no way.
Oh, Kate would.
It's a chicken costume. But she's like, this is incredible. And so it's pretty funny, man. Like, what's amazing is that Wade's Army and what we're doing here for neuroblastoma has far exceeded this group, and kind of what we're doing here at Power Athlete and, going out to other people. So it's pretty cool to see all the effects of it. And I'm stoked that we could be the catalyst for it. And, our goal of basically just kicking pediatric cancer square in the junk, hopefully is closer than not.
So here's the calls to action. Number 1. First off, thank you to those who have participated in this initiative in the past, because I know people have been on it since day one, right? There are people that we see every year. So our challenge to those folks, and I guess any new folks, is this thing grows exponentially when you take on a fundraising role.
Yeah.
Right? So if you have any questions on how you can just take a step above being a donor, which we greatly appreciate, but actually tapping into your local network, your family and your friends for a cause that is meaningful and organic and has legs, and you can see exactly where your dollars are going. Contact us to get the toolkit to be a fundraiser. Right? People are doing all sorts of cool stuff to fundraise. Just simple emails to their friends. Gym owners are holding gym events.
Yep.
People are going into their corporate offices and they just talk to their coworkers. But all of this stuff, if we can start to expand that reach, is super meaningful. Right? Number 2, call to action. If you're not ready for that, kick in a few bucks. Head to one of our pages or one of your friends' pages or whatever, and throw in whatever you can contribute. The donation amount for a shirt this year is $35. But if you can only throw in $5, that's great. If you want to throw in $5 a month and do a recurring thing, that'd be fucking epic too. And then finally, number 3, if you're just not in a position to throw cash at it, help us spread the word.
Yep.
Right? And you could still fundraise or just share our social stuff and just get the word out. Right? And that we appreciate all your guys' effort, and even the new folks who are coming on. If you have any questions, you want to learn more, wadesarmy.org. But anything else on that, Tex?
Yeah, at Wade's Army. Mm-hmm. And if you want to go directly to the shirt donation, give.classy.org/Wade.
Wade, which is not spelled phonetically.
Just
W-A-D-E. Yeah. Now, listeners, thank you again for hearing out about Wade's Army. Today on the show, you have your co-hosts, Luke and Tex, human Tex. Pretty
dense. I got dense bones on it.
You
knuckle.
sure it's not like steel beams in there? We have Luke and Tex, featured guest, founder, CEO of Power Athlete, John Welbourn.
Friend of the podcast.
No E on the end. Friend of the podcast. Who also has started don't you have a group fitness class out in Florida or something? Is that John Welbourn?
I thought it was Washington State.
Oh, that was O-R-N-E.
No, yeah, there's no U in that guy.
Oh, fuck that guy. Well, yeah, John Welbourn's all over the world, man.
I always wonder if the other John Welbourns are like, God, fuck this guy.
100%. They're like, I'm just trying to start. First off, what was that guy thinking starting a business name?
John Welbourn Fitness.
In fitness. It's all going to go to fucking like Talk to Me Johnny and Mom and Raw Milk. And we're going to hear about the intern's crazy mom jamming you up on raw milk.
Yeah.
But we have an episode today, just the crew. We threw out a shout out on social media. We said, hey, you got questions? We have answers. I guess it's a form of like ask me anything, but really we're just talking training, nutrition, cybergenics, robotics, things like that. Standard fucking Power Athlete Radio shit. And what? Am I wrong?
Movies.
And okay, movies. So
did you put a Texas laugh disc in? I mean,
I did.
I know that there's, special things that we can get to get them to
My
laugh.
CPU is a neural net processor. It's a thinking computer.
What the fuck are you talking
It knows humor.
That's a bad Arnold, I guess, from T2. You don't know what a neural net processor is?
No.
Most robots don't.
Yeah.
They're not aware.
Well,
so question 1. I'll just go ahead and jump on this.
I go back to the Elon Musk where he's like, I hope the machines are nice to us.
This is from
after we've been so mean to the machines.
Merrick's dad. So Merrick's dad, let's click and creep on his profile. Or her. I don't know. I guess dad would be him or whatever. Is Tex a robot? John, what do you think?
I'm going to go, based off of all of the research I've been doing on whether or not something is or is not a robot, I think it's a conclusive yes.
You think so?
Yeah.
Why?
What? Well, let's look at this from like a logical way.
As a robot would.
Yeah. Right. Like, and I'll try to put this. Prove to me you are not a robot.
When I got waxed, fucking cried. I'm still crying over it.
But we can program that in.
Yeah,
You can't program tears.
Yeah, you can program emotion.
You know,
It's fake
John,
emotion.
you ever like have that moment where you're looking around for your keys and you're like, where the fuck are my keys? You're checking all the right, and next thing, like they're in your hand, and it's just you didn't think to look in plain view for the most obvious answer. We've been around text for 7 years, right? And not once have we ever questioned whether he was human or a robot. Can you fucking believe that?
Well, I just thought it was generally assumed that he was a robot.
Oh, I've been thinking he's human.
Well, no, you know what? I just figured like he was like a deficient personality, that he hadn't had enough time to actually assimilate into human emotion.
And that would explain all of his blood work.
Yeah.
His blood work's coming back extremely high in silicone chips.
Blood work.
And copper wire.
There you go. Dr. Christie, proof that
It really wasn't blood. It was more this like Synvisc, almost like like a oil. It was really weird.
But sadly, I think...
But don't worry, we're going to get him some new, even though the hardware is a little janky, I think that we can get him some better software as things evolve. And you know what? For Christmas, we're
That's
going
the
to
nice thing about robots.
We're going to try to get him a program that talks about emotion, capacity, understanding, communication, and really just connection. I think we can get him there.
We need to get him the hugging module.
Ah, the hugging. Is there like is there a card for hugging? Kind of like a video card, but a hugging card?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll sort that out.
What's tech's power source?
Good question. It's not the sun.
Because I was looking for different plugs, and I think that Quato thing on his foot might be the actual plug.
Oh, that's his. That's where you plug in?
His USB port.
Could be. Are you concerned that John or I are robots?
no, because
are you alarmed that we're concerned maybe you might be? This reminds me of that website, Ted Cruz for Human President. Have you ever poked around that?
Yes.
Yeah. I guess if you want to burn 10 minutes, people go to tedcruzforhumanpresident.com.
It's really funny.
I don't know. I mean, a political approach, I think it's funny. I don't fucking know.
Well, I think the problem today is that people are not really willing to laugh at themselves. And, like on our deal that, obviously somebody was asking if I was in the Beatles with, I don't know what, I was rocking a hat yesterday and I think I took it off and that was part of the matted down hair.
Give it a booze, you pumpkin pie haircutted freak.
Dude, I like, yeah. And then the crazy part is the, Premier Penguin in Power Athlete all of a sudden fucking pulls out a meme on me real fast.
Hard roast on Baba Ganoush.
Which is fine. Which, you know what? I laugh at myself constantly.
Should we get into
But you know what?
training?
Laughing at yourself is a human characteristic.
Yes, I would agree.
Right? Robots can't laugh at themselves because they don't have the ability to project outside. They don't have empathy in robots.
Interesting. I did not know that. I never knew you were so plugged in on robots.
I did. Did you guys read that book called We're Fucked?
Nope.
The whole deal about how like artificial intelligence and like the self-learning and we're pretty much fucked. That as soon as the robots become self-aware that like we are the problem, we're out.
I would agree. It's the Matrix.
So why do they continue to create this artificial intelligence? Didn't Facebook
they turned it
its
on
own language or something?
Yeah, so they turned it on and all of a sudden it created its own language and was talking amongst each other to itself.
Fucking Skynet.
100%, and it's coming. I mean, like the whole like auto self-driving cars. I mean, all this stuff, man. Like, and I think what they're doing is they're searching for innovation.
Well, they got rid of that. Arizona, a couple people died, so they shut it down.
The problem is that the when the robot cars come up to like let's say a stop sign, if there's anything on the stop sign, it doesn't read as a stop sign. So there were stickers. Somebody had put a sticker on the stop sign, and when they went up, it doesn't because they don't have the ability to. They can program in like here's the dimensions, the heights, the size, and all the algorithms for identifying a stop sign. But if you just put a random sticker on there, how do they know to create like all those different variations? So I think what happened was that there were stickers or something was different on the stop sign, and that's why they didn't stop.
In Texas, your Tesla, they shut down the self-driving mode. So if it's a Texas registry, you can't do it.
I think they call that the Aubrey Marcus law.
I was going to make that joke, but not name names. But
yeah, I mean, we saw Aubrey Marcus speak, and then that night, I guess he was driving home self-driving, and it crashed.
That'll happen.
Or that's at least what he said.
I like driving though.
Yeah, I love it. Mm-hmm. It's how we separate ourselves from the animals.
Yep. That's the only difference.
Yeah. Oh, and the robots. Because the robots can't drive.
No, because the turn signal always confuses them.
Oh, they believe it.
I have no idea what that means.
No,
but
if someone leaves their turn signal on, probably think they're actually going to die.
Are you the guy who drives with his turn signal on?
Oh, sometimes,
Oh man.
Yeah, I'm going to be turning up a few miles ahead.
If you ever really want to fucking light somebody up who's like tailgating you or driving like a dick, just turn on your fucking blinker and just leave it on.
It sometimes happens on Hamilton Pool unintentionally.
Oh, Hamilton Pool.
But then I eventually turn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just giving
space.
Yeah, fair notice. Let's get into questions. Okay. What are you thinking, McQuilkin? Silence.
With the sounds.
Well, we can start off. Youth football's underway, John. So we got a ideal progression of training for youth athletes with the power athlete model. Say they start showing interest in the 6th grade and training through their senior year. Middle school fitness.
Oh man, this is a lot to unpack, and I feel like we've unpacked this numerous times, but let's bust it out. So ideally, like, what is the goal here? Like, what are we looking to do with our 6-year-old, our 6th grader, who would probably be right around 10 years old? So if you're trying to put like a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, yeah, because my daughters are in 2nd grade and they're 7, so they'll be 8 this year, so maybe even a little bit older, like 12 for that grade. Okay. So if they're showing, signs at 12 years old that they're interested in training and they want to get out and they want to start doing something, I think the easiest thing to do is just, getting into like different like body control, different movements that are using their body. I mean, we've pretty much dispelled the myth that, lifting weights early stunts growth, but I think that we're going to have a huge amount of time and just a really big volume of opportunity to train with barbells. So I think it comes down to just being able to find some sports and some other training modalities that foster and develop athleticism. For me, especially with my own kids, gymnastics, swimming, anything that I can do that allows them to change different environments, change orientation is important. I'm not as willing to take a 10, 11, and 12-year-old kid and put them into a gym and have them basically just start on a linear progression, just because I think that there's other things that they can do. If you look at any of the Russian training manuals, and they talked about developing GPP, for kids, pre-puberty, it looked, pretty similar to like a mixed modal, GPP, metabolic conditioning, glycolytic capacity type deal. The other thing, which is, got me thinking a ton about this, it also comes down to running and sprinting. Mm-hmm. We were with Cal Dietz last week, and over dinner he made the interesting observation that sprinting is by far the greatest representation of power, strength, speed, and athleticism that we could ever hope for. Mm-hmm. That you can tell more about an athlete by how they move and how they sprint, and a lot of the deficiencies. And I think it gets overlooked so much in athletics because we figure, they run, they do this, they do within their sport. But are we using the sprinting as a kind of user-based feedback for whether or not the training's doing well? If you have a 10-year-old kid that can't sprint, to me that's more of an issue. That's not a strength training issue. That's not anything. I mean, you guys have heard me drone on and tell the story about I was always a pretty fast runner, and then I got a big growth spurt, and it really suffered my running in middle school, and it just, that coordination could have been changed with just probably a little bit of physical training and more than just doing, push-ups and wrestling with my brothers. So I think just putting together a smart strength conditioning program that adds a lot of variety and a lot of different movements, and that really focuses on step, squat, and lunge, push and pull, hinge, and working on developing that,
I guess I'm kind of interpreting it as like showing interest means like they want, like, hey, Dad, I want to lift some weights. Right? Maybe dad lifts weights. Hey, I want to start lifting weights, or mom, or whoever, right? So they're going to get some gym time. So 6th grade's you're thinking like a little early for bed weight, right?
Yeah, but
not the lifts per se, but the progression, right? So introducing to some lifts and movement patterns with a barbell or a dumbbell is fine, but like making numbers up, John, maybe you refine for me. Maybe that's only 30% of the time spent is doing that type of shit, where the other 70% is like, get out and sprint as fast as you can and fucking tumble and roll and jump and fall and get up and shit like that, right?
Yeah, 100%. I think that over the course of my athletic career, if I look at like the pivotal time in terms of athletic development, I think like the majority of that came from not only the sports that I played, but a lot of just within like the open loop kind of recreational type stuff I did with my brothers, from everything from pick up basketball and all the games that we played that are pretty interesting if you look at the way kids develop games, because who's ever creating the game is usually the game benefits them and their skills the best. Like I was watching my daughter Jamie, who's taller than Killy, be like, hey, we should play a game to see who can touch the highest. And like it's pretty funny that kids will kind of develop games around their strength, and then and I always tell Killy, sure, do whatever game Jamie wants, because she's always going to put you at a disadvantage, which is invariably going to help you. But I think the one thing which is pretty universal, at least from my observation, and any of you guys that follow Chris Kresser's gymnastics bodies, like when my daughters were pretty young and I took them to gymnastics, and we still take them 3 days a week to gymnastics, and my son goes, just the amount of training, the execution, the ability to generate a ton of force in a short amount of time, and a lot of the skills that those kids are using in terms of how to use their body in space are at such a very pivotal point within the training lifespan of those kids that they're never going to get back. Like, it's not like as if, all of a sudden here at 40 years old, we're going to get into adult gymnastics and learn those things again. Mm-hmm. So I think you have such a small window. I mean, ideally I always want kids somewhere around 13 or 14 on the bedrock profile. And before that, we really just want them to be able to do something that looks like move, play, jump, sprint, run, something like jiu-jitsu, something that involves some form of throwing, like, judo, anything that involves some form of sliding, from skateboarding to razor to, snowboarding and skiing, something that changes different orientations, like tumbling or gymnastics, but also like different environments like swimming. Mm-hmm. So I think anything that you can do in terms of developing and giving them the greatest opportunity to develop the most amount of skills is really what I shoot for. Mm-hmm. I would, if I had like a kid who was in 6th grade that was showing a lot of interest in training, I would probably set up some markers and be like, all right, hey, we're not going to hit a barbell until, we learn to swing a kettlebell, until we can do this. And I'm sure there's a lot of things that we can do that just don't look like barbells. Yeah.
And I think when you're talking about getting them into this like breadth of shit, the important thing isn't necessarily to be awesome at it. It's just to get better at it, right? Like there should be forward progress on it. And I feel like it also gives an opportunity to expose a kid to something they become passionate about for a period of time. And then you can help foster and like fan that flame. And yeah, man. Asked and answered.
I feel.
Yeah.
Hope that did it.
All right.
Number 2.
Going on the other end, older athletes. Recently read that coordination, particularly hand-eye, cannot be improved in older athletes. What is your opinion on this?
I disagree. I think for a long time, there was something I remember in the rushing training manuals I read years ago that talked about you're not allowed to, or you're not able to develop grip strength past a certain age. I think it was like late teens, early 20s. And, and then actually talking to Burke Soren's dad, Richard Soren, who's like one of the only dudes to ever, close the, Captain Crush, and, talking to him about how he developed his grip strength. And he told me that his grip strength dramatically improved in his 30s and into his 40s. And, it was something that he continually worked to progress. And he had a whole system, from isometric contractions to different reps. I mean, he was pretty systematic in it. And if you, Bert's dad is in his 70s now, and, he got into a car accident. He's had some health issues, but you go shake his hand and it's fucking legit. Like every time I see him, I'm always like, hey, Mr. Soren, and go give him a handshake. And I want to feel that, like that thickness and that power in his hands. So I think, similar to grip strength, which is, your, great indicator of central nervous system efficiency, how hard you can squeeze something, but also with hand-eye coordination, are you doing things that continually work to develop hand-eye coordination? Now, hand-eye coordination is a perishable skill. So I just wonder sometimes if, as people age, if all of a sudden things like playing catch, juggling, other things that we do for hand-eye coordination, like shooting, all those key, things that involve, your ability to put something on, like whether it be like a football or, a bullet or whatever it looks like, do all of those tend to improve? Yeah, but if it takes work, it takes opportunity, and it's just a perishable skill. So I think if you're continuing to work at things and you've developed them at a younger age, and that you continue to look at this mastery, and also I think as people age, man, they kind of get stuck in their ruts. I mean, we see it all the time within the training deal. Yeah, they become more inflexible. And you're going to hear me talk more and more about this idea of metabolic flexibility. The healthiest, strongest, best athletes are the people that can do the biggest variety of things. It's the greatest indicator of health is that metabolic flexibility. The person that consumes the most variety of foods without discomfort, becomes a great indicator for not only strength and performance. So, and there's some really interesting research that talks about the most metabolically flexible people are the ones that can hold the most amount of skeletal muscle. So when you find yourself becoming so inflexible, both metabolically and also physically, where, hey, I can only do X, and you don't continue to learn new games. I mean, if you go back and you look at CrossFit's original deal, the top of that pyramid wasn't the fucking CrossFit Games. It was find new sports and practice them regularly. Mm-hmm. That there was this idea of training in this hierarchy, and you're always working towards this, like the mastery of new movements, the open and the closed loop, the trying to find new tasks to use your fitness. The idea that, hey, I'm doing thrusters to get better at thrusters was never the original intent. And when I was first approached by CrossFit, the way it was explained to me made a ton of sense, and has since been perverted into this fucking sport of fitness, which I think was never the original intent, and hence the reason that Glassman fucking basically packed the games with C4 and fucking clacked it off. It's just it was not the original intent that we were going to have people racing in fucking thrusters.
Mm-hmm. So would it make sense that hand-eye coordination would deteriorate as vision deteriorates, right? Like if your vision gets worse, would your hand-eye coordination get worse?
My vision has not deviated, mm-hmm. but also this is kind of funny. I don't know if you guys remember, but years ago when we were at Little Power Athlete in Costa Mesa, Callie bought all those old, remember all those old fitness magazines?
Oh yeah.
So we were combing through them, and Callie's probably cackling right now as I say this, but they had a whole thing on developing and strengthening your eyes, like the idea of like looking wide, looking all over. And I find myself, if my eyes get tired, that I start doing some of the movements, and they believe that you could train your eyes the same way. So I don't know if the deterioration looking at screens has done anything, but I also think too, because we look at screens and we're in this environment so much, that we're not really focusing on long distance anymore, which effectively is weakening our eyes. So a big thing they talked about is focusing on the horizon, trying to see things. I mean, but I do that when I drive all the time. I mean, I don't know about you. I can see far and see distance. I'm not just focused, like a robot on the car right in front of me. Mm-hmm. But trying to see what's globally going on. So I think big issue comes down to just continuing to develop and sharpen and and really just fight the hands of time in terms of developing perishable skills. Mm-hmm.
So things like juggle, spike ball,
yeah,
pickleball. Are we on tomorrow?
Pickleball.
You want to get fucking spanked? Well, you want to buy me a smoothie tomorrow? What about you, intern? You buy me a smoothie tomorrow? I fucking bet you are. You ever going to show up to that pickleball court, big guy?
Yeah, I've never been invited.
I literally invited you last week.
I know, it was the first time.
So you're not a robot because you lied.
Well, you guys get these pickleball games going. It's like I just figured I just never was invited.
Hey, you're always welcome.
Oh, okay.
Because the loser buys smoothies.
Yeah. Smoothie bet. So yeah, I guess that seems like. I think what deteriorates is your capacity. Maybe is that a fair statement? Like, okay, in your 20s you could push your hand-eye to this, however they measure that, but in your 40s you could push it to like, a degree less of that.
Well, how are you measuring hand-eye coordination?
Exactly.
So in the NFL,
how many knives you can juggle?
We had this deal, which was like a light board, and I remember the guys at Naval Special Warfare had it, and so it's like a board, and there's like a whole bunch of lights, and as they go off, you go and you can touch them, and they're able to test your like reaction time. Mm-hmm. And is that an element of hand-eye coordination? I think that was reaction time, but your ability to
I'm
be
sure
able
there's
to...
a matrix. There's got to be some fuckers studying this.
if you watch, I'll always forward Harry Shaw a bunch of videos, especially like old dudes that are still boxing, and they still move really well. They still can measure distance and put their hands where they want. So when you talk about like hand-eye coordination, or all of a sudden you're going to get to the point where, somebody throws a football and, you have no ability to measure the distance and you just catch it in the face.
Like
if that's the case,
episode.
if that's the case, then you probably need to fucking play more sports.
Yeah.
Like I think the reason, like, and I always go back to this, like, I think we don't get old and stop working out and training, doing this other stuff. We stop training and doing these things, and then we get old.
Yeah.
Totally. Because
it's kind of like a fucking old car too, right?
Yeah. If you don't drive it.
Yeah.
And you don't get out and smash it and fucking change the oil and do all those things, they fucking deteriorate.
So I had an article about quickness from way back, 2014 or 15, but I listed, auditory motor coordination, sensory motor coordination, and ocular motor coordination. Of all three of those, I guess quickest would be that visual. Mm-hmm. But then I guess you lose all of these. Johnny Durrett, who is asking this question, maybe dive into that article. Simply search quickness, training, and praxis on our new PowerAthleteHQ.com.
Ooh, have you seen how nice that website is?
I have.
Oh my gosh. I mean,
I think they call that a panty dropper.
Well, yeah. I mean, I would have the original, 2 months that we budgeted for time that turned into like 14 months, but better late than never.
Yeah. Well, you're like, hey, we got to go to Oregon for a square body. So put that project on the back burner.
Training question? All right. This one's from Alex Senek. My wife is our second baby.
My wife. Borat? No. Text. No fucking laugh on that. Upgrade your humor.
Oh, the problem is robots haven't been uploaded to Borat voices. I mean, I knew it was Borat, but I'm a human.
Thanks for that.
Allie G's so much better.
Ollie? Was it a bad
She's heard me rave about power athlete programming for a while, and now she would like to jump on Bedrock. What are your thoughts? For context, she's following birth rate throughout her pregnancies and is a relatively experienced lifter. She's gotten the okay from her PT to start moving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that feels like maybe like an iron flex and a lean enable to get going.
Mm-hmm.
And then the thing about lean enable is you just make it heavier, right? So the prescriptions on there will be like kettlebell swing, like, women anywhere from 15 to 90 pounds. Because
203.
When I was going through and scrubbing some of the results, the weights that people select, which we know are far less than what they're capable of.
Sure.
Right. And then even just having some friends of friends who are not necessarily in the Power Athlete Nation jump on it, reporting with them. And it's like, single arm dumbbell press day. I'll ping them for 8s. They're supposed to hit 8s, and then check in, and she'd be like, oh, I used the 8.5 pound or 7.5 pound dumbbell. I'm like, no, you got to go at least 25 on
Well,
that.
she doesn't want to get big and bulky.
Right.
And
it's not even that.
And everybody knows that if you just do 8 reps at a heavy weight one time, you'll just instantly look like, like The Rock.
Yes, absolutely. And had that discussion as well this weekend, connecting back to like.
So if I lift weights one time, I'll look like The Rock. He looks like a big muscle head.
Exactly. I was talking to Andrew Dice Clay.
I never put 2 and 2 together.
But then I would say get on that do that 6 to 8 weeks and try to make those workouts heavy and lean and able. And then there's probably some space for Bedrock. But the tricky thing about Bedrock is for it to really be sassy, you want to be sprinting.
Yeah.
In conjunction with that.
And there are a lot of sprint drills mixed in there. Objective, that program's primarily for that high schooler we were referencing earlier, or first-time barbellers. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of skip and sprint technique approaches. So if she's down for that, but the true expression of that program is going to be unlocked through that sprint combined with the linear progression of the barbell. Lean enable, different focus, different centric, and then maybe she finds a love and a passion for that program and changes the implement to an old school barbell to have some fun with that.
Yeah, ain't no shame in that.
Old
or
school.
Even moving into grindstone. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Grindstone would be great too.
So I would direct her towards lean enable and then throw in that little iron flex to get her, moving. Great.
Yeah, so that's kind of like a recent program launch. So there's a good chance listeners haven't heard of this. So IronFlex is the evolution of anyone who's familiar with our that's why we changed the name, dynamic movement prep, which was some movement therapy shit and preparatory work. And even, you could substitute it on your rest days as active recovery. It was originally a 12-week program that you would just repeat on your program calendar and train heroic. Well, IronFlex is the evolution of that. We're taking it into these 3-week micro focuses, and it's 6 days a week and get you hot and sweaty for your workouts. Or like if you're stuck in a hotel room, just fucking do it twice. Like do the prescription twice, and then you spend 25 minutes doing movement shit.
Is IronFlex a oxymoron?
No. Active range of motion.
Yeah.
Not just passive.
I mean, but is iron
Sit and
flexible?
stretch.
Like Reno's the biggest little city in the world?
Mm-hmm.
Like IronFlex?
Yeah.
I mean, a human would know that. Would a robot be able to pick up that that's an oxymoron?
Are you looking at me now?
Well,
Am I the robot? I've always wondered this.
Why
I wondered
are you
if
the
I'm
tech
even
guy?
real. At the TSAC conference, I fucking, it might have been late night. It might have been after a few, what were we drinking? What was I drinking? Oh, I was drinking vodka sodas.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have White Claws, because I'm a White Claw guy.
Yeah, and you drank all the red wine and Topo Chico combos, so you just switched to vodka sodas.
Well, so I go, okay, John, I feel like, have you ever gone in the bathroom, right? And it's like at the airport or restaurant, and it's the auto fucking wash things, right? And you're walking out from going to the urinal, and you do what normal humans do, and you go wash your hands. And you step in behind someone who's just finished washing their hands, right?
Uh-huh.
And maybe it's like your first, I guess it'd be the first interaction with an auto sensor, and you put your fucking hands under there and it doesn't go on.
Yeah.
And I think I've thought multiple times in my life, have I passed over to like Bruce Willis in The Sixth Sense? Am I no longer real? Am I like in this weird purgatory?
Well, I just thought that your hands are so small, I probably can't.
No, that robot.
These fucking bear claws?
That robot doesn't like you. Another robot.
And then these people were like, no, I've never thought that. But what if that's it? Like, what if that's how we know we've passed into the ether or another dimension or another, the next phase of our lives?
Man, that has never gone through my head as I was trying to wash my hands.
Someone listening has to.
No.
Yeah, you don't think so?
Simpsons
I'll tell
did it.
you, the fact that you are this excited about White Claws makes me realize that you've gone to another dimension.
They're lovely. They have 70 calorie ones though. But beware, buyer beware. It's because they pull out the alcohol. What? You're a White Claw guy?
How late is it? Who am I hanging out with? Lots of different scenarios to answer that question.
So you've never questioned whether you're like a spirit body based off of an auto sensor sync that doesn't go off when you put your hands under there.
No, I figure when I pass over, we'll know.
Well, what if
It'll
it
be
is just like you wake up one day
crash.
and it's like Bruce Willis in Sixth Sense. He thinks he's alive. He's helping out that little kid, but it turns out, spoiler alert, he's just dead ghost. And that kid sees dead people.
That movie was pretty amazing. They filmed that in Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. And it was actually not far from where I lived. And I remember like all the trucks and all that. And then I was like, oh, geez, that was like right on Walnut Street. But
have you seen The Sixth Sense, intern?
Whoa!
Just ruined it for him. Put it on the list.
Yeah,
Jesus.
Yeah, along with Revenge of the Nerds.
Mm-hmm. And if any M. Night Shyamalan movie, I'm a fan. I don't give a fuck. I like the one where they're all bad. The Lady in the Water was a shitty one, wasn't it?
It depends. It's good acting.
He was you remember I really liked The Last Airbender. And then I don't ever think
I did not watch that one.
I don't think I've watched that one.
Yeah, they had The Last Airbender, which I thought was cool. And I don't ever know if they ever brought out a sequel to it. But maybe they did. Look that one up. I could be wrong.
Well, I haven't seen it. I'm going to watch that one.
No, The Last Airbender I thought was legit. People were lukewarm on it. I thought it was great.
Well, he had flopped a couple before that, right? And I think he had cooled off, so people probably didn't give him benefit of the doubt.
I like science. Okay, next question.
Swing away.
Might be late, but I've been doing Lean and Able for the past couple months along with Johnny Bod. Obviously,
good combo.
For the calf gains. I've been adding extra cardio due to Air Force's love of running. But I was wondering how many days or distance or times per week that you guys would recommend to crush the 1.5 mile run.
Man, I feel like we're about to launch a program that is tailored to what this guy's asking for. I know it hasn't. Well, actually, by the time this podcast comes out, it'll probably have dropped. The HAMMER program, the Holistic Athlete Movement Readiness Program that was developed in conjunction with the work that we did with the U.S. military, is going to hit the commercial market here, and is exactly what this guy is asking for.
Yeah, it's probably what he needs.
Yeah,
for sure.
He needs the HAMMER.
Because it's like a plussed up lean enable, right, in terms of movement selection. It's got the running incorporated. Right, and then Johnny Bod, you probably want to still keep on top of that.
Yeah, it's got some Johnny Watt influence. So there's going to be basic barbell movement, different conditioning, different pieces. It's going to go and use a ton of testing that we've been using in terms of like how to offline with our different groups. And it just takes in 10 years of experience working as a contractor for Naval Special Warfare, and also the work that we've done over the last couple of years with the U.S. Army. So it's pretty cool. We've been testing the program for over 2 years offline with different groups, and it's just a lot of the information that we've accumulated and just some really jiggy stuff. So I'm pretty excited about the HAMMER program.
Yeah, and it's in response. I mean, there's people listening who have asked or wondered, hey, I'm following
how to hybrid
Jack Street, Field Strong, Johnny Watt, Bedrock, Grindstone. How should I fit in my runs and my rucks? Right? So we answer that question for you, and it's tailored specifically for that. And going into even the ACFT, we're working on a prep program for that. But really, we had a talk with one of our dudes, reached out for some help on maybe getting his people trained up a little. And he had the right mindset, I think, that big Army leadership doesn't, or maybe they do, and they're just, this is the only way they see to get this solution in big Army is to put this ACFT test out, is like your capacity to pass that test should just be a product of your training. The training shouldn't specialize you for the test, right? Which is what we've been trying to fucking bang that war drum with these guys for a long time.
The training should be preparing the soldiers to have the greatest capacity and the most amount of readiness, and be able to train them as complete athletes. And by putting in some various tests like a reverse med ball toss and this and all the other pieces of the ACFT, like these are all things that should be pretty easily executed if you're doing a complete training program. The issue we've always said, and you guys know this from school, if you only study for the test, you many times lose the entire value of the course.
Right.
Now, if you have an excellent mastery of the course, the test just becomes a mere of a check, to make sure, everything's in the right place. I know. And I remember, when I was in college, early on, like trying to study for these tests and then realizing that if I just mastered the course, the test is just a, indication of how well I was able to, assimilate the information, to use a robotic term, assimilation.
I guess if that's piqued your interest and you're one of those servicemen and women who it's like, fuck, I'm interested. Programs are called HAMMER, HMR, and ARMOR, ARMR. So powerathletehq.com/HAMMER, HAMR, powerathletehq.com/ARMOR, ARMR. Enough about us. Let's talk about them.
Let's talk about them.
The royal we.
Well, personally, I'd like to stick with a thought that John just said, and then, that goes back to our early discussions with the Power Athlete methodology, and we didn't want this to be just a test you take, pass, and then here's your piece of paper. No, we wanted to develop it, to ingrain it within you as a coach, and how to read, react, and make the correct decision for your athletes, whether that's building and writing out our program or in the moment coaching and leading the athlete.
I think what's so unique with the Power Athlete methodology that's just so different from anything else I've been associated with is it really gives you the nuts and the bolts and the information for success in terms of the strength conditioning, training your athletes, understanding movements. If you look at, some of the other certifications, and, we've done them and, we know them well. Especially just within the bylaws of the NSCA and their deal, it has to be very agnostic of pointing in a direction. It presents you all the information, and here's this, wide variety and extremely important information. But in terms of like the how, what do I need on day one? How do I most effectively train my athletes? What movements this? It just doesn't fit within, the narrative. And I think where Power Athlete has gone with the methodology is being able to strip down and provide coaches the greatest amount of information to guarantee success immediately. Like if you're a coach or you're somebody out there who's thinking like, you know what, I need some more inspiration. I don't feel like understand this. I mean, coming in and having, not only all the information and all the coaches I've worked with, but really the information we've gleaned over the last 10 years, traveling the world and teaching hundreds of seminars and working with athletes on every single continent, whether it be, tactical athletes, professional, Olympic, whatever it is, and being able to go in and can you walk in there day one and knock their socks off? And really that's what the goal for the Power Athlete methodology and really the evolutionary piece of the Block 1. And, but even for people that have no desire to ever be a Block 1 coach, the foundational information and the resource that the methodology provides, I think is better than just about anything else I've ever seen.
But even if you didn't want to be a proverbial coach, getting into that network gives you fucking access to really switched on people that can help you at any fucking time.
Well, but,
I don't know. So, but I know what you mean, because it's an investment. You got to come out here. You got to fucking test in front of Luke, John, and Tex. And it's kind of like, number one's capital investment. Like you have to fucking prepare for it. It's hard.
But don't you think like, to truly develop, I mean, I always go back to the analogy of like, how do you polish a diamond? It's with friction. You have to put yourself out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
You have to get out of your house. You have to put yourself in deeper waters, learn new information, and then see if you can apply that information in a meaningful way. Mm-hmm. If it's just, hey, I think I'm just going to, look from the outside and never really get involved because I don't really ever want to be, put myself into a situation of whether or not I sink or swim. I just think it's disingenuous and you're doing yourself a disservice. Mm-hmm. Like invest, come in, see how the information works. Oh yeah.
The man in the arena.
Yeah.
Right?
The man in the arena, not the critic. I mean, it, like every day I think about this in terms of like, like what can I do to improve upon not only Power Athlete, but myself, and like whether it's, searching for new books to read, meeting new people, listening to new information, doing new things within training. I mean, deep diving into this and surrounding myself with people that I think are much smarter than me. To me, I think that's the only way that you can ever dramatically improve is by getting out of your comfort zone and putting yourself in and asking questions and really going back to that, always be a white belt. Like I have no problem asking questions and, even though, and I think people really struggle with this, like nobody ever wants to be thought of like, oh, that guy's an idiot. That guy asked a beginner question. Everybody always wants to be thought of as an equal. And like, dude, you guys know me, I'll fucking ask anything. Mm-hmm. Like I have no problem putting myself in a situation where like, yeah, I know a lot, but like if there's somebody that knows more than me, I will ask. And like, dude, I'll stand on that doorway for 3 days and, want to know the information. And I think with the methodology, having, not only walked into hundreds of gyms over the course of a decade, and then, and what even blows my mind more is I played in the NFL for 10 years, and then I've done this just as long. And, the information that we've gleaned out of all those experiences and all those different groups and all those different people we've worked with, to be able to to take that, distill it down, and to be able to provide somebody the information that they need based off of all of that, I don't think there's anything like it in the world.
So just marking the different learning experience that a strength and conditioning coach has. So we have conferences, we have certifications, we have seminars, we have online courses like our Power Athlete methodology. And I guess we reverse engineered the Power Athlete methodology from 3 different perspectives: the student, the coach, and the teacher. So if you think about it, that is the hat that a coach is always wearing. You're a student if you're standing across from a peer or a more experienced coach. Then you are a coach, a leader when you're working with your peers and directing your team of athletes. And then you're almost a teacher when it comes down to one-on-one situations if it's peer-to-peer. So, if, for example, if I'm teaching Luke a different movement or the objective of today's training sessions, or if I'm coaching, cueing, directing an athlete. So that we give that opportunity to take on all these hats as you get into it. But if we go to seminars, and we know the seminar game in and out, we're the best in the business, no question about it. That's 2 days of you're just a student. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, and we did, I think, a really good job of giving people an opportunity to coach, and then we coach them coaching. Mm-hmm. And then in certification, it is just a simple test of competency. I'm taking a 150 question exam that is very broad, as we spoke of, and then a conference, it's a shotgun blast of information from a lot of different experiences, a lot of them get the opportunity to be on the floor and then ask deeper questions because hopefully the instructors, the speakers, they stick around for a while and immerse themselves in that. So it's a different learning experience, but not as hands-on and deliberate and directing as a coach, a teacher, and hopefully a student needs to be. So it is a unique learning experience, and you'd expect nothing of Power Athlete to create and implement and damn near try to master-proof these things and change as we needed to see change. And then the evolution to the Block 1, where in my experience, we're the only organization that provides direct feedback, right? Coach needs a coach for you to adjust and continue to develop and improve. It's not just getting this piece of paper. No, it's a forged hand block, and then you enter a network that they realize, all of our team of Block 1 coaches, that it's something special. And if you walk in there, they're going to test you, and iron sharpens iron within that group, which, I'm super proud
exactly
of.
What we're hoping for.
So it's, I don't know, it's just a cool learning experience and something that I guess, John, that you experienced in your education as a student, and then we've done our damnedest to recreate, to empower these people for that constant improvement.
Yeah, I mean, everybody that walks away with it is like, but now am I a better coach? I understand how to work better without it. And like, a lot of these kind of black box things where, really not a lot of coaches have the opportunity to go and intern with Aaron Osmus and, sit there and, at his door and see how it's all done. And I think, unless you're willing to go that kind of monk strength coach route, there's really just not a ton of opportunities, and you're not going to find it on a message board. As much as I love Dave Tate, you can listen to all of his podcasts, and he's not going to talk to you about how to train big groups. That's not what he does. And you can listen to Brett Bartholomew and all these guys and start pulling it collectively. But at the end of the day, we needed to create a course that empowered the user. If they had to walk into a room and all of a sudden work with 30 kids that day, how does it look? What does the training look like? How do you start? Where do you do this? How do you all these other nuts and bolts pieces, and sit over here, being like, oh, hey, let's talk about, different muscle insertions in this. I mean, which is really the foundational information that you need. But at the end of the day, people just need to know what to do, and they need to be able to provide opportunity, and they can like wander around in the desert for 40 years with a flashlight hoping to find it, or they can sign up for the methodology, come in, join the team, and we'll get you going in the right direction, and you'll be running 100 miles an hour before you know it.
And you can answer all these questions yourself instead of asking us.
Yeah.
If you're into that whole type of thing.
What? Self-realization? Can robots
self-actualization?
Can robots self-actualize?
I don't think so. What do you think, robot?
That was funny. That was a funny one. Speaking
glitch in the software.
Yeah.
Speaking of conferences, relevant question here, and I will make fun of myself in this question by me reading it. Pleasantly surprised you didn't allow Tex to wear his niece's shoes to the NSCA Tactical Conference. With that said, great talking with you. Any takeaways from said conference, on or off the presentation floor?
Yeah, I thought Cal Dietz would have eaten more meat.
Burn ban.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't familiar with eating at a Brazilian steakhouse like a starving stray dog.
No, he wasn't. I was like, hey.
He's chewing, cutting
nuts,
normal-sized chunks of meat.
I'll take this one, guys. So one of the cool experiences is we just get to have fun conversations on the side with a lot of switched on people, one of which is a future Power Athlete podcast guest, Karen. So one note that she had was the term
this is what I was
tactical athlete, and her term that she applies to the individuals that she works with, a war fighter.
Right.
So
I'm going to just to seed this.
Okay.
Everything is being marketed, and we even have questions. Like there's this persona of tactical athlete, and
which kind of makes me it just, I don't know, it never felt right.
I understand the intent, because athletes at the professional level receive the highest level of human performance training and monitoring and intervention. So I understand why they're grabbing onto that. But to her point, Tex, and I'll kind of pass it off to you, is now they're misappropriating a lot of the shit because they're trying to make better football players out of soldiers. For example, I'm making being very general, but so Tex, hand off. I didn't mean to cut you off.
So I have a lot of opinions on this based off. I sat in on as many presentations as I could and tried to soak up a lot of the experienced coaches in this realm, because it is new to me. So when we were going in and basically doing some awesome things with some clandestine group, I'm trying to learn as much as I can to evolve how I communicate with them, because it's a lot of my first time working with that high level of warfighter.
Right.
But how do you break into this industry? It is through sports performance, of how you break into the tactical athlete coach field, however the hell you want to describe it. I just really appreciated her term for these individuals of warfighter, because taking the cap and the mindset of a sports performance coach and bringing it in there, it is not. We can specifically reverse engineer our strength and conditioning in-season, off-season programs for specific demands, and then we get this freedom of break and off-season, when a lot of them, their scenarios are instant. It's impossible to prepare for. So I guess hearing and listening to the experience of how they analyze. There's so much data. I've never seen there was more data on these athletes. Is it data or data?
Data is a character on Star Trek.
There's so much data on these athletes.
That's who you went as every year for Halloween, didn't you? I mean, he's the most famous robot, isn't he?
I don't know.
I think the most famous robot is the
Danger, Will Robinson. Danger.
No, the one from that movie where he reads a book real fast and he's I'm a fucking
Rain Man?
No. You'd seen this.
You lost me.
You fucking seen this. Robot movie, 80s. Fuck, I'll find it.
Okay. Anyway,
no.
So
I mean, they've done a ton of like empirical research on the demands of the athletes, and I really, Karen had an incredible observation where she said, everybody's trying to use these different kind of like periodization tables, and they're trying to do this and this. You mean Terminator? RoboCop? Short Circuit. Johnny Five.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've seen it. The one thing that she really brought up is that this needing of like a concurrent training model where you're, and we've seen it within our own training, and we've really proved this, that you can really be very successful with a concurrent training model in terms of, can I develop strength? Can I develop power? Can I develop speed? And can I, have a fairly decent amount of aerobic capacity so that I can, utilize all these and have an efficient recovery system. And I think like all you have to do is really just kind of look and see, hey, what I need to tweak specifically for each athlete. But that idea of a concurrent training model and understanding and training these guys in a holistic approach from being like, well, we're going to do this block of strength and we're going to do this. And I think that's just a real failure. Mm-hmm. But also using time outside of the gym and really the training as a bigger piece. Like the guys that we work with, do a ton of trips. They are constantly doing training, within what I would call their sports skill, really that, what do we call it when we were task specific preparedness?
Mm-hmm.
The TSP.
The TSP. So we got in this idea of GPP, general physical preparedness, and then there's an SPP, specific physical preparedness. And I really took it a step further in the discussions of this idea of like task specific preparedness. What is the task that is required of me? What do I have to do? And really that came from a conversation we had with a guy when we were down at Fort Bragg working with the 18th Airborne. That was a generator mechanic that had to would basically get dropped with all of his tools and would have to fix the frontline battery generators for shooting the big, missile deal. And, he's getting dropped in austere environments. It's hot, it's, it's sandy, it's dirty. These things are, online, they're offline, and then having to go in and diagnose and fix these problems. And hearing the demands of what he was required to do really just kind of changed my thinking and thought like, hey, does this individual need to be extremely capable? Does he have to have a ton of capacity to be able to do this? Does he have to have a high level of skill? And does he have to be able to diagnose and recall information under stress? And then how do you train for that? Well, the only way you train for that is by putting yourself in the environment, but making sure that, you've done enough of a concurrent training model that you're really prepared for whatever is thrown out to us. So I think they're going to get into this thing over time, and they're going to realize that, they have to be very specific in how they're training these guys within the actual, sport specific realm.
Mm-hmm.
And one more note with the term. So I'm not shitting on it. All those guys, I trust them that they know better than I do. But speaking to one individual about how important that term was for him and his role, because he's going to Congress and he's fighting for funding. And he sees, all right, this senator's from Michigan, knows he went to University of Michigan, and he's a big sports guy. Mm-hmm. So he just walks by him. Let's go, Blue. Guy turns around, gives him a moment. Mm-hmm. And this is his opportunity to talk to a familiar tactical athlete. He knows the Michigan weight room. He knows every player on the football team. And this opportunity, I'm just throwing Michigan out there as an example, but the opportunity to make a representation connection between the demands and the funds and what's needed to fight for these individuals that are training for life and death matters.
It goes back to the talk I did at the War College in D.C. last year. One of the best quotes I got came out of World War II, and I can't remember who said it, but the Army, within their field training manual is training for war is similar, or what was it? Training for war is training for sport. So the idea of developing the grenade is a similar size to a baseball, and they felt that training for sport was the greatest thing that they could do in terms of war fighting, and that's been the mindset for call it the last 100 years. The problem is we had that huge deviation in the 80s where all of a sudden we, put in a push-up, sit-up run test, and that wasn't very reminiscent of what the demands of the soldier were in terms of being, strong enough to carry heavy loads over long distances. And we've learned a ton within, the fact that we've been at war for the last 20 years. I remember General Cameron's statement that there are kids entering the military who were born after 9/11. Who don't ever remember a time before we weren't in war. Now, if you go back and look at America's history, I think we've been at peace 14 years of the last 200 and some years we've been a country. But in terms of an active ongoing war, we're coming up on, 20 years here, 2 decades. And so it's, the lessons that we've learned, should be, monumental. And the idea of trying to extrapolate out and say, hey, what are they doing within this, performance training realm for sport, and then trying to bring it here. I think the idea with TSAC and a lot of these other groups and being these warfighters need the best, and they need to understand that a concurrent training model that's able to balance, power, strength, and speed and capacity and put them in the best light. And it's really what we spent the last 2+ years doing with, the U.S. military in terms of developing the Hammer program. So, and what was different than just about anybody else is we got the opportunity to go in, train, and implement these programs in small groups and really get a ton of user-based feedback through not only Train Heroic, but our other medians for it, and being able to take those lessons and then be able to push them out. And I think what's interesting too is everybody has this idea of hey, this is what I want to do. And until you get into the scenarios, you're like, I know what I want to do, but what can I most effectively accomplish? What's the maximal return for the minimal investment? And how do we create efficiency and adherence, and just making sure that people are, committed to it, and, the most consistent individual is by far has the greatest chance for success.
Yeah. Bottom line, great experience. Thanks, Nate, for the helping us out there. And met a lot of cool people. And a lot of power athlete people.
And the old fashions.
And the old fashioned.
Power Athlete is pivoted from our Moscow Mule, team drink to the old fashioned.
What? Oh yeah, old fashioned.
Old fashioned White Claws.
Yeah.
Oh God.
So
is that an old fashioned with?
No, the problem is Luke can't buy old fashions anymore because school's back in and all sorority girls have bought them up.
No, White Claws.
Yeah.
You said old fashioned.
Oh, I meant White Claws.
Yeah. They have. They have. Those sorority girls in their White Claws. I wish I could be in a sorority again.
Barstool's got a pretty good thing with all the different sororities, and there's usually a White Claw joke about every other one.
No, for sure. Listen, hang on. If you think don't know that it's douchey, you're way off base.
Yeah, but everywhere you go, you roll in with a 12 or a White Claws.
That's right, I do. No one's going to drink them. I drink my own White Claws.
When we were in Summer Strong, and I woke up in the middle of the night and I was dying.
This is great.
I don't drink very often, and we started drinking kind of early, and so I went to bed at 5 o'clock, and I woke up at midnight, really thirsty. Went downstairs, and I thought we bought bottled water, and I thought that maybe these White Claws were water, and I just cracked them, drank a bunch of them, and then went back to sleep.
Yeah,
and I was
fucker.
I was like, these were awful canned waters, and you're like, well, they're White Claws, they have alcohol in them. I'm like, didn't taste any of it.
No, you don't. which is great for sorority girls and me.
Only 70 calories.
That's right. What do we got? Let's get out of training.
Okay, we're out of training. We ready for random, or you want to?
No, let's do like a nutrition. You got it. Let's do this fat one. John, strap in. You're taking this one.
All right.
You want me to read it? You got it.
I'll read it because I have no take on this.
But only if you're able to do it in a robot voice.
Oh, best robot voice. Great.
I'll come back to it. I got to look up Grandma's Boy quotes, and I'll come back to it.
That's pretty good too.
Okay, so I'll think of it and practice it while John answers this question. All right. Is dietary fat burned before stored fat? If so, in the case of someone who is not lean, cut, etc., would it make more sense to use a lower fat diet until body composition goals are met, burning all the stored fat that they can? Then adjust to a more low-carb diet where fat and carbs are based on performance and life goals.
You okay?
Oh,
hang on. For our listeners who don't go on YouTube, yeah.
Okay.
For listeners who don't see us on YouTube, John's just doing facepalm, head rubbing. He's getting,
Okay,
relieving stress. Keep going.
Yeah, go on.
It seems that many people on keto and low carb who have never been single-digit body fat just lose water weight and bloat, but never really dig into the visceral fat stores. While those who have gone low fat at some point and are the ones with full abdominal cuts and now maintain on a healthier fat diet.
Higher fat diet.
Higher fat.
So this is from
Thoughts?
my father-in-law. I answered this question for 9 hours this weekend twice. Or this weekend. So you're up, buddy.
Okay. Just throw all that out. Just stop.
Yeah.
All right. Here's the deal. At the end of the day, the law of thermodynamics is going to teach us that if you consume more calories than you burn, you're going to store excess as body weight or body fat. Mm-hmm. Now, can you actively and do you really believe that the body has some amazing hierarchy where you only burn fat?
Well, first off, your first line of defense is going to be oxygen, right?
Yeah.
Then it goes to carbohydrate.
Yeah, it goes glucose.
Right. Okay. And then, in theory, you can become fat adapted.
Well, you can start to burn fat,
right.
but what the
But that's not adipose tissue. That's fat within the mitochondria, right?
Yeah.
Okay, go on.
And I'll just give you some observations that I've made. I've seen every single person. I've seen people that were shredded from a high protein, high fat, low carb diet. I've seen people that were shredded from a high protein, low fat, high carb diet, and I've seen people that were shredded out on a isocaloric diet. The greatest.
I'm going to go crazy. Okay, there are shredded people who are meat free.
Yeah, there are people that are. Yeah.
So you'd call that a poor quality protein, probably higher carb, lower fat diet, right?
Yeah.
But it's out there.
Yeah.
For the sake of argument. Go on.
So I always think that the fact that people use body fat as a representation of health is pretty interesting too. Mm-hmm. Because by that definition, then you would look and say, okay, hey, bodybuilders are the healthiest people on the planet, where we know that they are.
Or physique people
are many times the most unhealthy individuals.
Dr. William Willie, right?
Yeah, Dr. Wiley.
Or Wiley. So that's a good episode. We should have him back on.
Yeah, he's pretty switched on. But that idea of body fat being this indication, and then the idea that, hey, I can burn, visceral fat at a different rate that I can burn subcutaneous fat. I just think you're overcomplicating way too many things. And I'll just make it simple. The only macronutrient I've ever seen that has any real play on body composition is protein. So if the one thing that's universally true about everybody that carries an inordinate amount of lean body mass, they usually have a pretty high protein consumption rate. So high protein. The rest of it comes down to really just carbohydrates and fat, or basically come down to taste, at least in my book. If whatever allows you to adhere to your diet the best, whether it be a higher fat, higher carb, or just a kind of a balanced piece. I think there was this idea that there was some magic super macronutrient ratio that would somehow unlock body composition. And I think really the only biggest factor I've really seen in terms of leaning out and body composition comes from lifting weights, eating a high protein diet, and eating in a caloric deficit.
And so I was going to go or maybe throw a layer on that is whatever combo also allows you to adhere to the approach, right?
Well, so like my wife and I had a pretty good, interesting conversation. She asked, like, what's the psychology of a lot of people? Like, why do so many people fail? And I'm like, well, because
within the diet space.
Yeah, within the diet space.
Because we don't want to get outside of that. Because why do people fail at life?
Life.
We have a lot of theories.
But think about this, right?
And
she was talking about like my wife's in phenomenal shape. She's fucking shredded out, and it's just whenever she goes anywhere, she gets all these women ask her like, oh, I could never do that. I could never do this. How do you do this? And how do you do that? And then she'd always ask them like, well, what are you doing? And it's usually something that's extremely just fucking extreme. It's like, I only eat one hot dog a day for 5 days, and then on the weekends I just eat whatever I want.
Mm-hmm. Sounds familiar,
right? And it's just like these crazy things, and I'm like, man, this is
Pocket
insane.
dogs.
Oh yeah.
What comes down to is consistency, and like as much as I think Lane Norton's a douche, he's pretty accurate on this thing that like the person that can maintain the caloric deficit the longest tends to be the person that loses the most amount of weight. Mm-hmm. And if you're eating, and if you set your calories at a certain amount and you weigh yourself and you're not losing weight, you're not really in a caloric deficit. That's an interesting piece. And people are like, well, I'm eating a caloric deficit. I'm like, well, how do you know?
But so go back to my in-laws, right? So, but there is a way to get into a caloric deficit and go into starvation mode, right? But what you then do is like, then you kind of trend towards a sedentary life that allows you to be calorically deficit, and then like it's just compounding issue there, right?
Here's the other issue too. What happens is people don't make just one life change. So all of a sudden, hey, I'm going to get in shape. I'm going to eat less food, but now I'm going to work out. So now all of a sudden, what they've done is they've increased their workouts in a caloric deficit, which is a guaranteed way to completely fail. Because what happens is you get into this weird starvation mode, and then you just fucking binge. So what we found is that people that are in an active dieting space, that are like within this diet mode, like, hey, I'm going to eat, anywhere from like 200 to 500 calories less than I'm burning a day. The problem is that you have to ratchet back intensity in the training space, and you have to say, hey, you know what? I'm leaning out, and I can honestly think the leanest I've ever been when I was like 6-7% body fat was by far my shittiest training.
Yeah,
I was at my weakest. But what's amazing is people are like, oh, you look like you train. They're asking all these questions. And
the Mark Bell effect.
Yeah. And it's like the problem is we have this idea of like what we think strength is, and it looks like, it's really pretty interesting. But I think in terms of the dietary fat, I mean, in this for the last 70 years we vilified dietary fat, but we know that there's no link between heart disease and high cholesterol. We know that the worst thing they ever did was call the fat on your waist the fat on your plate. It just doesn't make sense. And then I'll tell you this, within the last 10-15 years, all of a sudden there's been big switch where now carbs were evil. And if you guys have ever heard me say, there's no such thing as evil foods. Like chocolate cake isn't evil. Now if you sit down and eat a fucking chocolate cake every single day, then you're going to run into some problems. But at the end of the day, the chocolate cake's not stealing your PIN out of your ATM and stealing money out of your account or impregnating your wife. It just doesn't make sense to me. So the idea is, and if you're going to say anything is evil, it's the overconsumption.
Yeah.
Like
I came to this realization: the evil foods are the foods you eat too frequently.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, but
and I shouldn't. That's like caution on that as well, right?
In the story of your mother and father-in-law, the reason they're in caloric deficit, but what they found, which is pretty interesting, is if you're in a caloric deficit and you're dieting, protein has to be higher, because not only is protein more satiating, but it's also the only macro that really prevents sarcopenia.
Yes.
So the idea of like maintaining lean body mass stems from consuming protein. So they always talk about and we found this to be the case, that if you're in a caloric deficit and in some form of like dieting, leaning out mode, like, hey, I'm trying to cut weight, protein has to be higher, and we'll push it up as high as gram 0.2 to 1.5 grams per pound of body weight. Now, if you're eating more calories and you're in like more of a maintenance mode, you can drop protein, you can up the others, but at the end of the day, if you're in a caloric deficit, you better be eating the shit out of protein.
Right. And then another. So let me repack this question.
And then the idea, and the other one too is, carbohydrates keep water in the cells. So that's the idea of like, hey, I just
go keto
when at a low, they drop in their idea of dropping water weight. Yeah, I mean the idea that carbohydrates keep water in the cells. But if you look in, and we got our blood work done, and Tex will be the first to tell you, in that Krebs cycle, your body can convert ketones and start pulling from fat to convert. But at the end of the day, like, carbs aren't the devil.
No. So let me repack this question. So John, you crushed the second part, right? So what's the deal with like lean people going on keto and losing weight? Water weight? Yeah, carbs and water weight, right?
Well, why? Why?
I'd say...
Think about this, right? Because I think the reason... So two things. The reason that people lose weight fasting, right? So first of all, I don't mean to fucking destroy any myths, and regardless of the nonsense you're going to send me, and I said it 10 years ago, and I haven't changed my position in the last 10 years. Fasting is just a really jiggy way into caloric restriction.
For healthy people.
All this like idea that, you can get people that are metabolically broken, and let's say you have tremendous gut inflammation. All of a sudden I go from, inflaming myself for 12 hours a day over the course of 4 meals, and I cut it down to 6 hours, and I feel instantly better because I'm limiting the amount of exposure if I have some form of gut inflammation. But for healthy individuals, if you can't weigh and adhere to a caloric restriction, it's just really easy just to like confine all those calories to 3 or 4 hours a day.
Right.
And it's just a really fun way to into caloric restriction, and I'm all for it. But when you start talking to me about all this magic and this, it's just fucking nonsense. For 10 years, we've always said it's just a really good way into caloric restriction. And if you can't monitor yourself and you can't like, hey man, I'll fucking overeat, I don't have any self-control, then just be like, hey, I'm going to give you this window to consume out of. I think the reason people tend to do very well on a ketogenic diet and drop weight just comes from the fact that you cannot overconsume protein and fat. And the reason being, if you do, you usually get diarrhea. Mm-hmm. So if you eat too much fat, you'll get diarrhea. And if you overeat on protein, you're extremely full. Look at, you go to Brazilian barbecue and we sit down, we eat all that meat. Ooh. I mean, I could do that probably once a day. Mm-hmm. If I sat there, if I didn't eat all day and I went to dinner, I could crush all of that. Mm-hmm. Could I do Brazilian barbecue 3 times a day? No, it's extremely difficult to overeat on protein. Mm-hmm. And, and so what we figured is that, protein is extremely satiating. Like it's kind of like if you go eat a steak, you're still full an hour later. If I go out and eat sushi, I could probably eat more sushi 20 minutes later.
So a realization I also had on this, that type of approach is, so we're talking about a very acute event of like a high dose of calories. Something that needs to be considered there on whether that's like good, bad, or doesn't really matter is the trend. So what have you been doing for the past fucking 8 weeks leading up to that point? Like if you've just been binging on carbs, and then you dose into this super hypercaloric load of fat and protein, like it's going to count, it's going to weigh against you. It's moving the needle negatively. And especially if you're a sedentary person, you know what I mean? Now, taking into our lifestyle, which is train, like 2 to 4 days a week, maybe 5 over here, but training regularly, right? Having a very mindful approach to balance in terms of your micronutrient balance. You know what I mean? Hydration and sleep. Smashing big doses of fat and protein are not going to be as detrimental as, let's say, the alternative, which is huge doses of fat and carbohydrate.
Yeah,
right.
No, where you start getting into the danger zone, and also where we get into trouble, is by far the most glorious place, which is when you mix fat and carbohydrates, i.e., cake frosting is a classic example of
like Oreo balls.
No, but think about cake frosting, right? It's lard and sugar. That
was my nickname in college.
Lard and sugar.
Hard lard and sugar.
No, like I mean, there were probably like and Rob Wolf's talked about this. Like if you eat like hey, I'm gonna eat some protein and some carbs. When you start just eating fat and carb, that's when you fucking run into some into
shit
a lot
goes,
of
haywire.
Things go fast. Sure. So with the metabolic derangement. So in short,
let me repack and then. Okay, so the question, here's how I'm interpreting the question. Guy's hearing a lot of fucking shit because there's all sorts of shit within nutrition. What he wants to know is, how does he get shredded? How does he lose visceral fat? That's what I'm reading. So here's number one is check out the leaning protocol, right? Is there merit in doing...
well, let's make it simpler. Are you lifting weights? Mm-hmm. Right?
Me?
Right. Kind of. Are you lifting weights? Are you doing some form of conditioning that looks like getting your heart rate up? Mm-hmm. Are you eating in a caloric deficit? Are you eating enough? Well, actually, I'll go to number thing. Are you eating a substantial amount of protein? And are you eating in a caloric deficit that's justified by the scale, not by just, hey, I think I'm under eating?
Right. So measured caloric deficit. And another thing I came into on caloric deficit, and it depends on body composition and body weight, right? But this goes into training into a deficit, because if you require such a caloric deficit where you can't adequately achieve nourishment, I think that starts to put you in a bad space mentally. So that's why if you have a caloric load that is baseline, I think is what we were kind of calling it, right? If you go with a baseline load that allows you to have enough of the Roy G. Biv, right? Then train into your deficit. Well, that to me seems optimal.
I mean, 20 fucking years ago, I remember talking to Dr. Tom, and he, his whole deal is, the easiest way to lose weight? What you need to do
amputate.
is figure out, your basal metabolic rate, your BMR, right? Eat your BMR, and then use your training and your lifestyle to train into the deficit. And to me, that was easiest. I'd go get my BMR done. And I remember one time it was 4,300 calories. And I was like, holy shit, I'd been eating 4. No wonder I was, I was training too far into a deficit. And that really just made me realize I had to up my calories. And what was amazing was when I upped my calories, all of a sudden, not only the protein go up, I got leaner and I got in better shape. And the reason being is I wasn't always in this fight. So here's the deal. You can fight in a caloric restriction as long as protein is constantly high. As long as you're eating that gram to a gram and a half, all of a sudden the body composition changes. I mean, do you think it just, if you look at the way, for all the jokes we make on bodybuilders, I mean, not only is there dedication to training, diet, and all the other crazy shit. Right? Yeah, it's fucking, I mean, to see somebody get in shape for a bodybuilding show is pretty fucking difficult to watch because it's so extreme. But in terms of making a bigger, more jacked, leaner athlete, they got the fucking market cornered on that. And what those guys do is they eat a ton of protein. They're in a caloric deficit. And other than that, man, I mean, it's really not that jiggy. I mean, when somebody asks me what diet is the best one to follow, I tell them the one that you can actually follow.
Bingo.
We know that adherence, because here's the deal, man. Most people, if you give them just a free eat, they'll probably eat low on protein because it's extremely satiating. They'll overeat on fat and they'll overeat on carbohydrate.
Maybe on the carbs. You're probably right.
Because think about it, like one bag of chips has got 120 grams of carbohydrate. You think about a cup of cooked rice, 200 grams has got 50 grams of carbohydrate. I mean, a quarter cup of oatmeal is 25 grams of carbohydrate.
For sure, everyone's high on fat who's not being mindful.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, if you sit down and have 2 tablespoons of almond butter and eat some form of red meat,
right,
over the course of the day, you're going to be over fucking 75 grams of fat in your diet. So I just think that the idea of really understanding about not only how much you're eating, but being able to do this. And at the end of the day, there is no secret recipe. I've never put like this. I think I told you guys, when in my second year, they had this idea. They were hey, they wanted me to be 320 pounds. So I didn't run. I didn't do any conditioning. I just bulked up and I weighed 326 and I was super strong. I remember we went out to mini camp and I remember I took my first set and this fucking dude ran around the corner on me and he orbited me I was a fucking big planet. He was a moon and just smoked me. And I had this realization that I was too fucking slow. And I was man, I'm going to get cut. So I went home. I had 6 weeks off and I went back to Florida and you're going to laugh at this. I ate chicken and a huge salad. That was all I really ate. I'd say I would wake up in the morning, have some chicken, and I would have this huge chicken salad. Wolf. And I would go lift weights, and then I would go at night and I would fucking run and sprint, and I would fucking kick the soccer ball for an hour with my dog, and I would just be out there in the Florida heat for 2 or 3 hours. And I came back that 6 weeks later and I was 306. So I lost 20 pounds in that 6 weeks. And all of a sudden, I didn't lose any of the muscle. I just lose kind of all the bloat and all the bulk. And dude, I was eating, 400 grams of protein of just fucking chicken breasts in a fucking salad and just running my ass off. It was a, high protein kind of, low fat, sparing fast deal. And dude, I came in great shape. I was rocked up and fucking went out and did it. But at the end of I was totally under eating on calories, but the protein was fucking through the roof. And dude, I didn't really lose any muscle. Now, sustainably, for 6 weeks it worked, and I was able to lose that 20 pounds and fucking cut for it.
Yeah, and what you had was the baseline for the diet after the diet.
But
you knew what you were going to fucking do.
But I'd also been lifting heavy weights my whole life.
Right.
Like, it's a lot easier to take some dude who's lifted heavy weights for 20 years, who's got some body fat, and like cut his calories, keep protein high, diet him down, than it is to all of a sudden be like, well, you don't have really any base. If we cut all the weight off you, you're not going to have anything.
Right.
So like, what's the base you have? So
yeah. So again, repacking. How do I get shredded? Number one, you have to have some form of training that looks like lift some weights,
lifting heavy weights,
do a little bit of Metcon, do a little bit of cardio. At least those, right?
Yep.
So bare minimum, think of like grindstone.
Yep.
Then you need to be following some sort of non-crazy approach to making sure that you're achieving your baseline calories. Optimal approach there, I would recommend leaning protocol. So that's a pretty good place to start.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not because any sort of you're not targeting visceral fat or anything. Like, maybe there's some scientific mumbo jumbo that we're not hitting, but I think that is irrelevant and very fringe. You just need to change your life and then be prepared for when you lose the weight to fucking change your life after that, because there's no going back.
Well, if you think
there's no going back.
If you think about the difference between like subcutaneous fat and visceral fat, a lot of that has to do with like not only training, and I'm sure you can pull up a million different things, but at the end of the day, like fat and body composition, like as you start leaning out and start training and doing all these other factors and limiting the calories, I think it really just comes down to, don't eat like an asshole and train into a deficit.
Yes. Whew. I knew that one was going to be a fucking hot one. Tex is taking notes here.
Don't eat an asshole.
Assholes.
Don't eat
into a deficit.
I like my new fucking weight loss. Need to lose weight? Amputate. Boom. You can see it on a billboard.
Do we got time for a quick Jack Street Field Strong?
It's only been 90 minutes. We have the rest of the day.
Oh, okay.
Am I wrong? I'm not wrong.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and hit this Field Strong question. So, Sean Palaskina, Virginia Beach. I'm going to ignore your first question, Sean, and move right into question 2.
What was his first question?
How does Cash like sharing his shoes with McQuilkin? So you're a little off, Sean. Those are actually Jamie's shoes.
I was laughing the other day because Cash was wearing, Texas boots to school, and he peed in them, and I laughed.
Nice.
I was like, "Oh,
great!"
You haven't seen him sitting out on the wall. His boots been out there, and Kate's been. I was like, I went and sprayed him with Simple Green. They still smell like pee.
That'll happen.
All right. Question 2. What were the results of the strength speed cycle on Field Strong? Were there any lessons learned from implementing that 8-week block?
People are slow.
Sprinting.
People are slow.
People are slow. People don't like to sprint.
Or know how.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we can go back to a lot of technique stuff. We can go to everything. I mean, you can get into Cal Dietz's lateral sling and all the other stuff. But at the end of the day, the only way you get better at running and running fast is by running fast. And if your ability to generate speed and run fast is being hindered by not only strength, flexibility, technique, all these other key factors, it doesn't really matter. You're just running slow. Uh-huh. So I think the other thing, and which is kind of funny, which makes me laugh, is that the two things that people need the most, which is lifting heavy weights and moving as fast as possible, are the two most difficult things to do and two of the least sexy things to do.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, people love fucking jumping around, swinging kettlebells, doing this, Metcon, the whole deal. I mean, look at Johnny Wad. But when it comes to like, I'm going to fucking sprint as fast as I can for the next 60 yards, and then I'm going to take 2 to 3 5 minutes for recovery, and I'm going to give myself 10 fucking max effort sprints. That is a non-sexy approach and not a very just fucking not a sexy workout. But at the end of the day, like, all you have to do is go on YouTube and put in gold medal 100 meters, 200 meters, 400 meters, and look at the physiques of the runners and or the sprinters. And there was a pretty cool research article that Skutnik forwarded us that talked about it's next to impossible to sprint at near max velocity and to be fast and not carry an inordinate amount of muscle because of the dampening effect. That when they pulled all of these different sprinters in, and it didn't matter on ethnic type, it didn't matter on genetics, it didn't matter on diet, it didn't matter on training, every one of them, and the only thing they had in common was that they were all high-level sprinters, all had a very similar body type. Not because of just, maybe it's natural selection and maybe it's auto-selecting out, but at the end of the day, you have to be pretty jacked to be able to sprint fast.
Yeah, and...
So on the feed in Field Strong, we do a lot of coaching. Right? So the team sits around and we watch some of these videos, get some feedback. Right. Yeah, so I think that's where you're going.
That is what I'm leading to, and essentially we're looking at speed, and this goes back to our seminar days where we used movement to attack the limiting factors of speed. We're looking at flexibility, ability to get into position, stability, because you're sprinting as fast as you can. That's a maximal force that you can put into the ground. We need you to be able to control that. Mechanics is a big one, so we break that into arms and the leg action, the positions, the patterning that goes in through. So we gave all these drills to the athletes, and then we asked sprint, because John's number one limiting factor for speed, and he mentioned it earlier, is opportunity. Sprint.
So how many times, think about this, when was the last time you legitimately had to run as fast as you could because either you were chasing somebody down, something was chasing you, and you had to run because your life depended on it?
Outside, I got funny stories.
It fucking happened to me the other day crossing the street. I forgot where we were. I went to cross the street and this fucking car was coming, and I fucking literally dive and drive and fucking almost, I thought I was almost ripped my right shoulder out of the socket and fucking punch and hammer, and all of a sudden it came back and I took off, and I was like, fuck man, that dude would have clipped me. Thank God I had the ability to fucking move quickly when need be. But I think at the end of the day, like you said, man, the greatest determining factor for speed is going to be not only, the opportunity, and we can go through all the technique stuff, but at the end of the day, you have to be able to go out and run fast.
And we want you to have confidence in your movement. You're not going to be good at this, but the drills like our trampoline sprints or wall drills, we're putting you in a position to learn how to do this. And then through that program, we give you the opportunity to set you free and run fast.
Well, the other thing too, and I think, this is really also a very difficult piece in terms of writing online programming and delivering it to people, is when I was training down in Tampa with Roth, there was a bunch of Olympic sprinters that would come out and work. And the one thing that amazed me is they would take 45 minutes to an hour just in their warm-ups. So they would come out and they would run maybe anywhere from 4 to 7 max effort sprints at a given distance. And they would take 3 to 5 minutes of recovery in between, which looked like walking around the track, doing some drills, hurdle hops, different things. And they would kind of move active recovery. And then when they were recovered, they would sprint. And they only would work at run as fast as they could, whatever they needed to. And if they didn't run as fast on a lap and their time was off, they rested more or they were done.
Yeah.
Now, but what was amazing was the 45 minutes to an hour of fucking warm up. By the time they got into the sprints, dude, it was like a fighter. If you go in the ring cold, you're coming out cold. And so I think we put in hey, here's what I want you to do for the dynamic warm up prep. I mean, I know for me personally, before I go sprint the hill in the back and I go do my run stuff, dude, I get on the Aerodyne and I do intervals for 20 minutes. I do dead bugs. I swing the kettlebells. I do as much stuff as I can in terms of rotation and movement and make sure that I'm pretty well. I never go run cold because I know it's going to be one, I have a higher propensity to get hurt, but also it's not going to be my best effort. I'm not going to be prepared to do it. The nervous system isn't ready to fight. And I think a lot of this stuff, and we write it in hey, here's the warm up and this, and we take you through it. But we're also writing for a time block that realistically, if you were to do it this way, is 60 to 70 minutes. But at the end of the day, sometimes what's preventing people from doing their best comes down to the fact that they're just not warming up enough. And that's where the DMP and the Iron Flex and these other things come in.
100%. And so I hit a few track days with Annie Pughes on Field Strong, and she wanted to skip the warm-up or cut it short because it was taking 25 minutes to go through 3 rounds of our full sprint prep sequence. So you want to talk about lessons learned, Sean. Invest in that opportunity. One, because yes, it's getting your chili hot and prep for going your full speed, but it's also a bunch of drills that are teaching you how to run fast.
Well, what it does is it breaks the sprint into different positions, everything from the A skips to the B skips. I mean, it's all these different positions are taking or all these different movements within the warm-up are taking different skills that are developed and utilized. And also they're making sure that you're nice and warmed up, and the idea is that there's nothing as damaging or as hard on the body as a maximal effort sprint. And a lot of times that's where we see people pull hamstrings with horizon changes. They lift their head when all of a sudden they hit the mark and they go to decelerate, and they don't have the musculature, the stability to decelerate, and they fucking hurt themselves. We've seen the amount of people who would hurt themselves just from doing banded resistance sprints at the CrossFit football seminar was like too many to count. Why? Because they don't do that shit. To be able to put your foot in the ground and go vertical and, at a 45 and to go fast, dude, like that takes not only opportunity, it takes training, it takes care and planning, but it takes some balls to do it right.
Yeah. So a couple final lessons learned, then I'll hand it off to you. You got our Jack Street question. There's one.
I'll find it.
Okay. But to get back into it starts. So I went through Ruiz's masterclass of sprint acceleration starts to get back into it. So relearning and just making mistakes and failure on that, and how important and valuable that technique and approach is. But then sucking. But I guess watching the film and slowing down and doing this, and then we were asking for a lot of start setups and execution to realize, oh crap.
Well, not to cut you off, but the thing that was most amazing to me is when you watch people run. So like all of a sudden they take off running and like, hey, let's say they're doing a 60, 70, 80%, and like the running's pretty good. All of a sudden, now we ask you to do a max effort sprint, everything fucking changes. They clench the hands. All of a sudden, everybody gets tight. And the idea is that, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. That, when you come out, the technique doesn't change. It just, your sense of urgency increases. So the one thing which was really pretty amazing to me to see is that all of a sudden you hear people like, I want you to run as fast as you can. And now people's entire demeanor changes. All the technique goes, they clench their hands, shoulders lift, and everything goes out. And I always am like, man, you have to stay relaxed. That, tension is the enemy of fucking going fast. That if you're all of a sudden locked down with all this tension, you're never going to reach your peak speed. And so that idea of task-specific tension and being able to be smooth and, all the other stuff that we prep within the warm-up, you have to be able to do that.
Yeah, and so big picture program lesson learned is we are not going to not sprint. So even though we're in a density fun field strong, sandbag cycle on field strong, Saturday is adding that option of sprints, because those of you that completed the strength speed cycle, we don't want you to lose it. So it's your opportunity to continue as you put on the tensile strength and the density from the sandbag cycle to maintain and hold on to the technique, or get more opportunity to continue to hone your craft.
Boom. Jay Welly.
Yeah.
Why on Jack Street squat days is the pre-squat work usually focused on the hammies?
Oh, because the hamstrings become really the driving factor. And like we found that by getting a gnarly hamstring pump, it seems to fix a lot of the knee dysfunction and any injuries we run into. So I actually picked this up from John Meadows. So when I was, we had John Meadows on the podcast years ago, and I remember we were talking diet. He sent me some of his training stuff, and at the time when he sent me the training stuff, I was like, "Fuck, I'm going to dive in." And so what was pretty interesting is he had all of this like high volume hamstring work before I squatted, and so I would hit all and do all this hamstring, and all of a sudden I'd get underneath the bar, and not only were my squats better, I had zero knee pain and just felt better. And if you look at some of the like I think I just read a pretty interesting article where they were checking to see how much hamstring is really used in a barbell back squat. And it's dramatically less than what you think, even with like a vertical shin. They talk about like a West Side deal with a vertical shin, sitting back as far as you can to really engage the posterior chain. It just doesn't work that way. It's always going to be, very hip and very quad, and rectus femoris, being more than just what you'd call in that, like, the hamstrings broken up into different pieces. So we found that by hitting a ton of hamstring work and getting a lot of pump in the hamstrings, not only did it improve the squat, but it allowed us to just be able to kind of do everything a lot better. I mean, I wish I had some, empirical research or some research study that's supported by doing high volume hamstring work before barbell back squats that it leads to X and Y. It was purely observational, and John Meadows is a huge proponent of it, and that dude's fucking shredded out and super strong.
So to expand, and he wants to know, don't get me wrong, I like getting those ready, but I would think getting the glutes, hips, trunk would be a higher priority. Now, number 2, we're giving you the minimum amount of prep work. We're assuming, and we say this in your onboarding shit, you're doing 10 minutes of prep work for like using your own.
Yeah. Pre-warm-up, warm-up.
So what is your pre-warm-up, warm-up? I mean, mine looks like, hey, I'm going to do some hamstrings. I like to do some kettlebell swings. I like to do dead bugs. I usually ride the assault bike. Spider-Mans. We do some rolling. We do some tumbling.
The hips, glutes, and trunk, right? Yeah. And so absolutely you should be doing some full body stuff before you dive into this. If you show up, pull up out of your, you take off your suit from your banking job, you go into your garage and you just start at A, and that's where you start in Train Heroic. You got to you need that 10 minutes of warm-up. That should be pretty full body movement flow, and that's where Iron Flex is a great help for people, but people you do shit all the time. Like you call it. So that's to kind of address that. Next and final question. He's a high bar squatter, very upright. Should that change how he's warming up before squatting?
No. People ask me all the time, high bar, low bar. I just want you to squat well.
Yeah.
So whatever allows you to squat well. Now, if a high bar allows you, or if your high bar squat sucks and your low bar is better, I'd much rather you low bar. We have a pretty interesting, non-robotic coach's eye, inherent understanding when watching athletes move.
Well, 2 or 3
and the ability to sense whether or not people are moving well. I can watch somebody squat and know whether or not that's a good squat or a bad squat. I don't need to do any more than just have some observation, and like watching it done, we know when somebody's able to move well and somebody's not. So, as long as you're able to squat well, I'm really not wrapped around the axle on where the bar position is.
Cool. Yeah. So same prep.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. What are a few examples? I'm going to go into this one. And let's just be quick on this. What are a few examples of a post-workout meal? Generally, paleo, primal, keto. Just wants to know what the fuck we're doing is how I interpret it. Yeah, why not? Like
for us?
Yeah,
personally?
Sure. Yeah. So a hunk of meat, a little bit of carb, depending on the training, and that meat typically has fat in it. So that's like, because we train at 6 a.m. So I don't always do eggs. I've been on a big like sirloin roast kick.
Yeah, I'm on a meat kick too.
Right.
So what I do post-workout is I'll usually do like 10 to 12 ounces of ground buffalo right now. But today I actually had some buffalo steaks just from Stay Classy. And then I did rice. Yesterday I did oatmeal. So I'll do some form of carb, and then I do some form of protein.
Yeah. Speaking of Stay Classy, Tex, are you up to speed on the bison box?
I just got a box, but it's got a whole bunch of varieties, and I'm forcing myself to learn how to cook some new
finally
meats.
Good.
And good thing I got this meat thermometer.
Still in the box.
Who sent you a box? Stay Classy?
Stay Classy. They're like, hey, we listened to the podcast for the first time and realized there's 3 people on there.
Yeah, literally talked to Scott, and he says, it's clear that John can't get anything done. Should I start sending stuff to you and text? Will that get us something done? And lo and behold, this year, this holiday season, we are going to have a Power Athlete Bison box.
Ooh.
Yeah. With hand-selected cuts from the team here. That means we're going up. We're going to get our hands on whatever meat goes in your box. We're going to rub them. We're going to rub them on Tex's robot face. We're going to rub it on John and Mayan's human arms.
I'm pretty excited about it. They send me...
so we got to pick out what's going in that box.
I get buffalo... They send me buffalo livers.
And did you know that box is supposed to be for the team?
They never told me that.
Yeah.
It's only like 30 pounds. That's bullshit. You get your own box.
That's what we did.
Well, then you're smart then.
Because you're a selfish son of a bitch, Welbourn.
Yeah, I have no problem not sharing that fucking meat. First of all, you would never share the meat with me, and you would probably let it spoil.
Listen, John, that's a fact.
To cook it.
No, it's sitting in my freezer.
Mm-hmm.
So you're never going to eat it because you have to cook it. Don't you eat every meal out?
No, God, no. I'm forcing myself to learn. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's funny. We never talked about that.
What, crock-potting everything?
Overconsumption of liver and went into a very
First of all, the fact that they would send one box for the 3 of us, what are we, fucking sorority girls?
Well, they send it to the office, and they're expecting us to open it and divvy it up. Yep.
Did they really?
Yeah.
That's a terrible idea.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, I know. That's what I told Scott.
That's why. That's a horrible idea. So
Never assume, children. All right.
So now Tex and I get our fair share of Stay Classy Yum Yums.
Good, you should. Fuck.
Yeah. But I'm excited about the Bison Box. So Tex, post-workout, what are you fucking going for?
A mixture of ground meats and then rice.
Yep.
And then forcing
salad smash?
Yeah, just a salad smash. But I have to eat more spinach. In particular, I was a mixed green guy, but now I, through Dr. Christie's recommendation.
More cruciferous vegetables.
So spinach smashing.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, and more fruits.
Yes, and I think so. For me, post workout, because it's just we're out of the house.
Yeah.
Boom. It's like the kind of a autopilot, but a little bit of variety. Most of my variety comes in like the lunch and dinner side of things. But I don't know. I'm not a big like.
Well, wake up, cook breakfast and lunch. Come to train. Walk down to the office. That's the flow. So we don't get that opportunity to, I don't know, make a normal breakfast. But eggs on weekends. I don't know.
So the moral of the story is just get some fucking protein in with a little bit of, depending on what your carb tolerance is or preference. Right?
I tend to eat the majority of my carbohydrates in the pre and the post workout meals.
Around the training. Same here. Okay, let's see what else. Okay, John, here's another. This one's we've never really. I'll just jump in. WD Shirley. I put a stick of butter in each cup of coffee and drink 5 to 6 cups per day. Somehow he's fat. What's going on? What's he doing wrong?
How many calories are in a stick of butter?
200.
Dude, look it up. No, look it up.
2,000.
Look.
So
dude,
this is a joke, you know.
I think. I know. I think a tablespoon of butter has like 12 grams of fat.
14.
Is it 14?
Yeah.
Well, we're looking at.
I think
810 calories. How many grams of fat?
That's a fucking pussy stick of butter.
How many grams of fat are in that? I mean, I would say like 90. Because 9 times
92.
Yeah, 92. All right. So if you're consuming 90 grams of fat
per cup of
coffee
6 times,
that's a little extreme.
How is that extreme? It's called the butter diet.
Well, and then the other problem is the majority of it is saturated fat, correct? What's the ratio of saturated fat?
It is over 50%, so it's 58 grams saturated. Out of 92.
Ideally, we would like to get a balance of saturated fat and monounsaturated fat. So, I mean, normally like olive oil. So, I would never recommend just.
So you got to put olive oil in the coffee.
Yeah, you got to put olive oil.
That's probably what it is.
I mean, the problem is it all started with the fucking bulletproof fucking scam artists with this idea of like, just drink these buttery fucking MCT oil coffee. It's bullshit, dude. At the end of the day, what's calories matter. Like, I don't know this idea. And he even said, he's like, because you're mixing the MCT oil with the coffee and you're eating in the fasted state, it
doesn't count.
It doesn't count.
Listen, if I'm putting any sort of fat in my coffee, it's hard lard. And you know it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm talking bacon grease and bourbon.
Bacon grease, bourbon.
Sounds awful.
And a shot of espresso. Okay, let's barrel on that. That was a joke question, people, I hope. So lightning round, what do you got?
Yeah.
Or do you want to address Ingo's thing? He's kind of got a fucking... Do you want to do that offline?
Is it a bad pun?
No, he's asking about... So he's performing better than typical on the court. So he's been retiming his nutrients. He's lost 10 pounds, which is fine. But as of late, he's been running out of nitrous oxide by the end of game 4 at night. How should he adjust the training? Diet is straight. Sleep is straight. He's dialed in on everything else. Games are on Mondays, and he doesn't train on weekends.
Has he got any blood work done?
No, probably not.
I'd love to see his blood work.
Okay, Ingo, send us your blood work.
Yeah.
He'll do some low heart rate stuff to stim the CNS.
Yeah, but I think it's going to come down to probably some form of blood work. He's going to have something within his macronutrient or micronutrient deficiencies.
Yeah.
I mean,
that could be it, because he's pretty switched on, dude.
I mean, if all of a sudden like we were to get into it and he would say, hey, you know what, like I'm lacking in something within my Krebs cycle and I'm not converting efficient ATP energy, it just feels like, or he's fucking old.
Ooh,
burn ban.
Yeah. Ingo's like in his fucking 50s, dude, and he plays like volleyball with a bunch of like 17-year-old chicks because they're the only ones that are like he can actually play with because prepubescent girls is what he plays volleyball. They share the same
taste in music.
Well, they do, and I mean it's like it's awful.
All right, long story short, Ingo, you're pretty switched on. We trust that you know what the fuck you're talking about. I think it might be under the hood type of deal.
Yeah.
Let's check that. All right, speed round.
Okay. Roadhouse is on Netflix. Point Break is on Hulu. Where do I go first?
I like Point Break.
What time of day is it? I don't really like watching Point Break.
Right now?
I don't really like watching Roadhouse during the daylight hours.
Yeah, that's a fair. Well,
To me, Roadhouse is kind of like a dusk nighttime movie.
Like a date night
I usually like to watch. If I'm going to watch Point Break, it's usually during the daytime.
with your buddies?
No, by myself. I would never. Do I want to be bothered watching? I have to explain to you the nuance of fucking Point Break.
spirituality of it.
Oh,
Jesus.
it's a buddy love movie.
Have you ever tried to watch a movie with McQuilkin? He's asked questions the whole time like he's like my kids.
This is false.
That is false. That is my wife, and it's terrible.
My favorite is what's happening. I don't know. Are we watching the same movie? You haven't seen this? No, it just came out.
I think that was your kids during Hobbs and Shaw.
Oh, it was awful. You know what? I will say this: the thing about Hobbs and Shaw
No spoilers.
is it makes the Fast and Furious franchise look like
Real
historical documentaries.
Yeah, I'm in, dude. The answer there, I think. So you're saying
John's saying time of day. I'm saying situation. What are you in the mood for? Because Roadhouse is more of a love story. Point Break is a buddy love. What am I in the need for?
classic robot response. The answer is Point Break, the fucking Roadhouse. Signed, sealed, and delivered. Next.
Are you saying that, wait a minute, that Point Break is better than Roadhouse?
No, in terms of watching, I'm interpreting it as what do you watch first?
Oh, okay.
I would watch Point Break first and then go into Roadhouse, because Point Break gets you amped up and you get all excited and then you're kind of low on energy, and then you go into Roadhouse, which is like, you know, not as much peaks and valleys. It's much smoother.
Yeah,
Plot line.
So
the double. All I can hear in my head is you guys talking. All I can think is the double douche.
Double deuce. Next up, you're in a street fight and you get one action movie star in your corner. Who do you go with?
Good one. I mean, I know a default answer. So do we go with the action star or the character of the action star? What do you want to do here?
I believe the character.
And so I don't consider the Avengers characters action stars. That's action.
No.
That's like superhero.
Supernatural out. We're talking about just, no mystical magic.
Okay.
Or powers.
So these
no
are
mutant
normal.
powers.
Yeah, no superheroes. And I'm going to say movie characters. It has to be the character of the action star.
Yeah. An example would be Shaw.
Yeah. Luke Shaw.
Is that his first name?
No, it's Luke Hobbs.
Yeah,
Oh.
Luke Hobbs.
So which one's Shaw?
Deckard Shaw.
Shaw is...
Shaw Statham?
Yeah.
Cool.
Ooh, okay, so I'm in a street fight. I'm getting close. Do you know who you're at? Who you're at?
I've already...
I've already fucking...
I'm fucking Nick Cage from Con Air because I know we're winning.
No way.
Why not?
Are you kidding me? There's only one person to select. Rambo, John Jay. You don't think?
No.
The
Con
way,
Air.
dude,
Street fight?
hands down. You saw him take apart those sheriffs in First Blood. I mean, dude, he climbed a rock face in Afghanistan. Probably best street fighter out there.
Yeah. Picked a goat up off his horse. What's that sport? I don't know.
So I'm desperately searching for a female action star. 'Cause I
Michelle
think-
Rodriguez.
No,
Gina
she's a-
Carano from any of her movies.
No, first off,
Michelle
that's
Rodriguez.
I don't think I want her. I don't want her on my. I don't like her attitude.
Why?
I don't
Ride or
like
die?
her attitude.
Ride-
I just don't
ride
like
or
her
die?
attitude. I'm thinking like Dom Toretto's also obviously an awesome one. Maybe Spillner, because why the fuck not? I mean, he's not going to participate too much. We'll probably get our asses beat. But it'll be like.
Do you
me and
think
Spillner just kicking it.
do you think in a real life you think Vin Diesel could actually fight?
100%. Well, we're talking about Dominic Toretto, not Vin Diesel. I'm not asking Vin Diesel to fight. He's going to try and kiss me.
Well, he's big into Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay, female action stars. There's
Gina Carano.
no that she's out, dude. I know she's your one, but I'm not taking that. How am I drawing a blank on it?
Who's the actress that plays Sarah Connor?
Ooh, I'd take Uma Thurman.
Oh yeah, Kill Bill. That's a good one.
Yeah, I'm picking a chick on my side because someone's picking a fight with me. I want a babe to beat their ass. And odds are it's going to be a lady picking a fight with me. So it covers from both ends. I gotta polish that up. I need to have a female action star on call to whoop some ass with. All right, next one.
Okay, Predator question. How young is too young to watch Predator? My wife says not 3. I tell her 3.5.
I don't know. Boy or girl? Because the girls are 7 and Predator's probably a little old for them. Cashy is 3.5 and Predator's totally fine for him.
Yeah, because I feel like your girls have the imagination to make all of that shit real.
Well, yeah. So where
and could traumatize them.
Well, yeah. So like they'll like interpret it that like there's really aliens and this whole thing, whereas Cashy's just over there like, dude, that big guy got smashed.
I'm speaking from a sincere form of like he's just a dude. Dudes are dipshits. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, he
they just want to see things shiny and blow up and fucking jack dudes kill things.
So they're
not worried about
he fell asleep during Hobbs and Shaw. And then all of a sudden we get to the end where like the action scene happens and the trucks and the fires and all that, and all of a sudden he perks up and I'm like, he just wants to see people get punched in the face. He did like seeing the I forgot what the Samoan haka is called. It's not a haka, but it's like their war dance. Mm-hmm. And he was pretty excited when they did that. But The Rock was looking fucking jacked.
As is tradition. Next.
Finally able to get down to the symposium this year in Austin, Texas on the weekend of December 5, 6, and 7. As of right now, who are some solidified speakers?
Kyle Turley.
Fucking Turley's going to be there. That's a good announcement. Kyle Turley is there.
Kyle Turley's going to be there.
So Kyle Turley, and we have Craig Bueller. So a few people have been on the podcast and have soft committed or firm commit. So Kyle Turley,
Josh Bridges,
Craig Bueller, and we'll go Josh Bridges. Well, those will be the 3 we'll announce.
Yep.
Okay.
Now Turley is you would think that Turley would bring the action. And you're thinking like, how can Turley bring the action? Let me just tell you.
Bring the action.
He's fucking bringing the action. And that's a fact. So strap yourselves in. It's going to be epic. It's in Austin, Texas. Venue details are updated. We'll put those speakers up. In terms of event layout, here's how it's going to shake out. I think we're pretty committed to this. So I might as well just put it out there so we're fucking committing. Okay, Thursday night is going to be at 800 Congress. It's a bitching ass venue. Our Block 1 coaches have a Block 1 event, private to Block 1 coaches only. That's going to kick the day off. And we're going to fucking go in hot and hard. We're going to save that as a surprise. We're not going to tell them what that's about yet. Then general admission starts to roll in. Then we kick off with our keynote speaker. Then we go into cocktail hour where there will be only hard lards and White Claws. Yes. Hard lards and White Claws. Then we kick off the Wade's Army Not So Silent auction. Holy fuck, dude. I'm getting goosebumps. This is going to be epic. Then we'll announce the mystery of what's in John's pocket. A taser. And then we will tase Tex for the grand finale. It's fucking happening.
What if I got to go to Arizona to see Rick Smith to get this done?
We tase twice.
You tased twice.
You are getting tased at the symposium. We have to promise listen, these speakers are all going to be boring. They need something.
You're writing checks. Your cash. You can't cash.
Classic robot glitch.
I was thinking that maybe don't tase them, but maybe we just timed like a metal chair and then we hook them up to like a car battery and just do like the Lethal Weapon shocking.
Let's do the fucking Rambo. Put them on like a mattress spring.
Yeah, like Lethal Weapon, like that type of deal.
Yeah. So that's day 1.
But it just might burn off a little bit of his body hair, so we got to make sure that we use a little lighter fluid to make sure we burn it all off.
Now, day 2 moves off to a gym, a facility right down the street from downtown Austin called East Austin Athletic Club. And it's fucking pretty bitchin'. It's really cool facility. The reason we had to move it from the ranch is because we want all of you in the practical.
Yep.
So day 1, we're going to have a Power Athlete practical session to kick off the day. You're going to be working with us. You're going to be working with our coaches. And we're going to be doing what we do best, is blowing your minds and giving you training tools, whether you're a coach or an athlete, to implement when you get home the next week, right? That breaks. And we're working on like a group breakfast, maybe with some infamous wagon wheel pancakes, right? Then we're kicking off. We're going to have a full day of speakers on that Friday. We're going to be doing that at East Austin Athletic Club. Then Saturday, we kick off and we're going to do another practical session with some of the best coaches we know. Some TBD, some are firmed up, and you're going to get exposure to that. And then we close out Sunday, maybe with some other antics. You know, John, one thing that we're talking about is like our feats of strength throughout the weekend as well. Like it wouldn't be a party without some fucking fun feats of strength that will just be going on throughout the weekend. You want to do a little reveal on that, or should we save that?
Yeah, there's going to be some odd implements that were fabricated here at Power Athlete. One of them is I got kind of inspired when we went to the Stark Center, and I am actually making our own big circus barbell. So I was able to get some killer weld caps, and we got some cool plates to mount it, and there's going to be a little bit of a deadlift thing that's going to be a kind of a like guess the weight.
Yeah.
And then we got another pretty cool thing that we're working on too. So there's going to be some neat stuff. It's going to be like, think like 1920s strongman, Coney Island.
Yeah, totally.
Kind of feel to it.
Yeah, and so the goal there too is number one, have some fun. We're gonna do a little like you said, guess the weight raffle, right? And anybody who kicks in on that, those proceeds also are going Wade's Army. So that, again, fundraising vehicle to help raise funds for Wade's Army. The feats of strength is gonna be fucking awesome. If it's turning out the way we're visualizing it, that's gonna be pretty fucking cool little deal. But that's where we're at for the symposium. It's gonna be fire, dude. events.powerathletehq.com/symposium. That's where the tickets are at. I want to say we're almost fucking 100 tickets are down. Yeah.
Sweet.
I think so there's not many tickets left, and we haven't even announced some of this shit. So get in early, people. Did that answer?
Answered.
Cool.
Answered. Cool.
What else? Any other questions?
I think there's hundreds.
I think we're good.
Yeah, we're good. All right.
Shut it down.
Bye.
Let's go home.
Wait, hang on. Tex, you say bye to the listeners in your best robot voice.
Bye.
Goodbye. Bye.
Adios, turd nuggets.
Now it's time for you to empower your performance. Be sure to head to wadesarmy.org to get your donation in. And remember to train and tag us in your IG posts so that we can thank you for your support online. Until next time, bye!